Speaking out of Akron, Ohio, representing Team Popping the Boys, the headline god, Jeremy Lambert, and his co-host, speaking out of Atlanta, Georgia, representing more than one royal family, the king of indie viewing, Stephen Jensen. And this is the Spotlight on Fightful.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Spotlight. I'm Jeremy Lambert. That is Stephen Jensen. And shout out to Big Dick MLJ for the intro. As always, it is Thursday, September 7th. Jensen, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. I have been busy. We had the day off work from my shoot job for the holiday, which was great for Labor Day. But because of that, it meant that I had to work overtime the last 2 days. But I don't have to work overtime today, so I'm happy to just talk some wrestling, do my normal routine. Shout out to my brother, had surgery yesterday, and it went really well too. So that was really good, and just kind of looking forward to today, looking forward to tomorrow, getting back to the weekend. NFL season starts tonight. Very much looking forward to that. So Skol Vikings, and how you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Yes, NFL does start tonight. It was a busy weekend, busy couple of weekends in the world of the professional wrestling. A lot of shows, a lot of big news. So I'll be looking forward to a little bit of downtime this weekend. I will say that I'm very much looking forward to taking a little break from wrestling and not as much to cover, which will be nice. Otherwise, doing well. Glad your brother's surgery went well. Always good to hear.
Yes.
It's doesn't really stop, but I don't know, man. A lot to talk about, Jensen. Plenty
to talk about. I mean, there's like the big elephant in the room, obviously. It's happened since the last show, which we didn't decide to make a spotlight this week because you've heard everyone already talk about it all. But I'll just get that right out the bat for me right now. There's really nothing I can add to the CM Punk situation that I haven't already said. Like, me and Jeremy kind of discussed that before the show. We're like, what kind of topics do we want to do? If y'all want my piece on all that, just watch last week's show. Watch, pretty much any of the shows I've done the last couple of years about CM Punk. I mean, my opinion really hasn't changed about the guy. And I think this is the best case scenario for everybody now. Like, AEW doesn't have to deal with this anymore. CM Punk clearly wasn't happy and he got out, and it is what it is. Saw CM Punk competed at a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competition. I don't know how recent that was. I did see the article come out yesterday. Novice BJJ tournament, third place out of 3 competitors. So that's really my only thoughts on CM Punk going forward. And what's so good about that too is like it's over. Like, the situation's over. And now we can just talk about wrestling again. It feels like kind of a big weight's been like lifted off of my shoulders and a lot of people's shoulders. It's just like, it's over with. And we got so much good wrestling to talk about, Jeremy. So do you have anything to add about CM? I know I'm sure you've done shows this week and already talked about it, but
yeah, I've done plenty of shows talking about CM Punk. I don't have much to add. I kind of even tweeted it. It was like last time he was gone, which was All Out last year. There was still that cloud, because you knew he was coming back. Everybody was fantasy booking stuff and everything. Now he's gone. So we will see what happens in the fallout. I'm sure he will make some type of statement. I'm sure stuff will happen. CM Punk, he doesn't really stay quiet when it comes to this stuff. He'll be on Instagram stories at some point. But for right now, he's gone. And we can focus on the wrestling. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to focus on the wrestling. We will start with AEW, because there was some big news coming out of All Out this past weekend, Dynamite last night, and it ties a little into CM Punk, but it's largely praise about the man that I consider the greatest of all time. But you know what, Jensen? One last time, for old time's sake.
I'm old and I'm fucking tired, and I work with fucking children. I'm tired of wrestling these kids that think they know everything.
Look, it's still a good quote. It's still some good quotes.
Great quote. I guess like the real question coming out of a quote like that is it better to be stuck working with children or be unemployed? I don't know.
AEW All Out this past weekend, it was supposed to be, by all accounts, even if you watch the television show, it was supposed to be CM Punk and Ricky Starks in a strap match. Did not happen because hours before AEW Collision on Saturday, AEW made the announcement that CM Punk was gone. He was fired. His contract was terminated. Contracts were terminated. And then they moved forward with a different plan. And the different plan was the Dragon, the greatest of all time, in my opinion, and in the opinions of correct people. Bryan Danielson stepped up, coming back maybe early from injury, maybe.
Probably. Arm's still broken, isn't it?
Yeah. He's got 205 bones. He's fine. He doesn't need that 206 one.
Yeah.
Maybe coming back from injury early, he stepped up, did the strap match against Ricky Starks at All Out. Absolutely fantastic match. I cannot praise this match enough. This is my spotlight this week. One, because the match was one of my favorite matches of the year. It's, to me, and my memory is not very good on this stuff. This and Ospreay Omega from Wrestle Kingdom. I like the first match better than the Forbidden Door match. Those two matches are probably my top two favorite matches of the year. I really like the WrestleMania tag team match as well. WrestleMania Night 1 tag team match. Those are matches that I felt very invested in. So those are, off the top of my head, those are probably my top three. But man, Danielson and Starks, I think everybody knows how big, if you don't know how big of a Danielson fan I am, I don't know where you've been. Ricky Starks, for those who have kind of kept up with me for a long time, Ricky Starks is one of the first guys that I interviewed back in the NWA day. And he was a guy that I requested to interview back then because I saw a lot of potential in him then in the NWO. I was like, I want to talk to Ricky Starks. And we had a very fantastic interview. And I've followed his career throughout that entire time. And I've been so what's the correct word that I'm looking for? I don't want to say impressed. I have been impressed, but it's just been a pleasure to watch his journey from the days of the NWA when he was a big highlight on those early power shows, all the way to now getting to wrestle a guy who I consider the best of all time, Bryan Danielson, and just the overall match, what it did for both guys. Danielson, I mean, he's a made man for the rest of his career, especially in AEW. Ricky Starks, though, I think everybody looked at him as the clean-cut baby face of just goes out there, Louis Vuitton, bags and shoes with no socks and everything. It's like, oh, this good looking guy. And this showed that grit side to him that I think a lot of people, a lot of characters might be missing. And it gives a different element. I love this promo last night on Dynamite to where he can still be a heel and still do the, like, you guys can't do shit to me. You can't touch me. Like, I didn't quit. You didn't make me tap out or anything. I just happened to pass out from this. Like, such a good promo. This wrestling match showed a different side of him in the ring. I've equated it to Orton and Foley from back in the day, where Foley was a very this super chat. I'm gonna go ahead and bring it up because it just popped me. Nancy Reagan, y'all got any of those neck strong?
that is a good shirt. Those Roddy shirts that they're wearing.
It coming from Nancy Reagan on top of that with her history that is out there. That's a good super chat. Shout out to you, whoever the hell you are doing that. That's really good. But this match was very big Foley Orton vibes. Of Orton was the clean cut, handed everything, and Ricky hasn't been handed everything, but certainly the clean cut guy who could just kind of coast by on certain things if they wanted to. And then Orton went out there and Foley went out there and showed a different side to Randy Orton in that match. And I thought that's what happened with Ricky and Bryan on Sunday. And just, I can't say enough of good things about both of these men and that performance they put on at All Out.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It was really cool to see for a lot of reasons. Like, the actual match itself was absolutely brutal. Like, especially when they like busted open with using like the buckle of the strap to like get color and all that. I mean, it was just brutal. All the straps to the face. And Danielson, like you said, I mean, he even said in the post-fight press conference, he was like, Ricky Starks carried me through that match, which is like that's massive praise from Danielson. For him to go out and say someone else carried him through something is like, that's huge for like the reputation of Starks. And then I also caught when he talked about choking on the apple seed, and I was like, oh, Jeremy's for sure gonna write an article about choking on semen for sure coming out of this.
My brand is strong.
Yes, I thought about you immediately. But Danielson said that he basically didn't use his right arm like throughout the entire match. They didn't throw any punches with that arm, and was just really smart about how he worked. And it was just because I definitely didn't notice during the match that he wasn't doing that. And then when he pointed it out afterwards, then I've gone back and watched highlights. I'm like, damn, he really, they hid that well. Danielson even said there was a lot of smoke and mirrors in that match, and it all worked. You know, Danielson coming back in the circumstances he did, because, you know, obviously the plan was Ricky Starks versus CM Punk in that strap match. And with Punk not being there and Danielson being out with injury, for him to step up like that is just so massive for the company. And I just love that scrum afterwards so much, that media scrum he did, because he really made it clear that he likes being that guy, that if they need someone to step up, like, he's there to step up. There are other people out there that are, you know, more about themselves and more about their ego and this and that. And Danielson doesn't need to do anything to cement his legacy. He didn't have to. Danielson would have gone down as a legendary performer before he even entered the WWE. Like, it just based off of like his reputation on the indie scene. Even if he stuck around there, it would have always been the best wrestler to never wrestle for WWE or whatever would have been Bryan Danielson. And like, and then you add the WWE run to it. It makes him legitimately, in my opinion, arguably the GOAT. I mean, being there at WrestleMania 30 was insane, you know, to see that live, and the whole, even the match with Triple H at WrestleMania 30 gets overlooked because of the main event, but that was an amazing opening match. And there was still enough doubt out there. People forget there was still enough doubt out there that like Triple H could win that match. They're like, what if they just do the evolution thing instead of Daniel? Like, they'd screw Danielson over so many times up to that point that they were like, even though it felt like it was Danielson's night, we still didn't know for sure. I mean, anyway, all that being said, for Danielson to be who he is and then come to AEW and then do everything he's done here since then, I think you're right. You know, I think, listen, I call Chris Jericho the GOAT mainly because I've been watching him wrestle since like the late 90s, and he became one of my favorite wrestlers immediately the first time I saw him, and I've been able to follow his journey. But I'm also not going to sit here and argue that Danielson's the GOAT. Like, if people are going to go out there and say, like, when you look at this dude's resume and he does stuff like he did this past weekend, it just cements it even more, where it's like, dude, CM Punk is gone. You feel, because the other thing is, like, someone big had to fill that slot. It couldn't just be like anybody versus Ricky Starks. Like, with all the build up to all of this, it had to be a legitimate payoff for Ricky, for the fans, for the Dragon, for everything. And Danielson was one of the few people who could have actually been, and all of this made sense and all of it pay off the way that it did. So, and Danielson didn't have to do any of this. He could have sat at home and been like, I'm hurt. Like, I'm, you know, let me at least recover. You know, y'all got a roster of 1,000 people that can go out there and do this right now. And he didn't. He went there and did it himself. So, yeah, I can't say enough good things about Danielson. I thought that strap match was the best match on the show. And yeah, just, and then also it put Ricky on the next level, like you said, similar to Randy Orton against Mick Foley, similar to, you know, like Edge versus Mick Foley. And Mick Foley did that for quite a few people around that era. But yeah, so this is all really, really good stuff all the way around. So
Danielson, you mentioned the media scrum after, he talked about like stepping up, and he said, you know, Jon Moxley and we kind of take on that role. Like, when we're asked to step up, we will do that. And Moxley has certainly done it, you know, every single time, whether it's a CM Punk incident or somebody else going down. I mean, the joke is that Moxley can't get his vacation because people keep screwing up, and Moxley's like, all right, sure, you need me for this show? Great, let's do it. Danielson now, it looks like, and I think this is great, it looks like Collision might be his show, which is, you know, for my money, that I'm all about that. You he was already involved with the creative side of Collision reportedly. And now that he's back, he's cleared, he's wrestling again. He'll obviously have a bigger on-screen presence. Danielson has very much talked about being involved in his kids' lives and his wife's life. Taking them to school, doing all the school activities. And obviously on a Wednesday, that's a little bit more difficult to do because you're traveling, you're going to miss Wednesday. You're probably going to miss Thursday, part of Thursday activities as well. He wants to be involved with that. Doing stuff on a Saturday makes more sense. You can just fly in on the Saturday, do the show, get back on a Sunday, whatever it might be. And then you're home for the rest of the week to be part of the school week, which is a grind in and of itself. So it's good that he will still find a place on television. He might not be on Dynamite as much, which is unfortunate. I like to see Bryan Danielson on every show ever, but it looks like he's going to have a bigger role on Collision, which I think is fantastic because Danielson's philosophy when it comes to wrestling very much is up there, I think, with what a lot of fans like to see. His history speaks for itself. He's probably too giving in some instances of like, yeah, you should probably win this match, dude. You probably shouldn't actually lose this one. Like you should probably just go ahead and be the champion, Bryan. I understand you might not want to be, but you should probably just go ahead and be the champion. But I think he has a very good philosophy on wrestling. I think he's not afraid to even take some risk when it comes to comedy stylings and things like that. This man wanted to wrestle bear style, so I think he will approve certain things that might be a little outside of the box and things like that. So he has a good mind for wrestling. Tony Khan has obviously put him over, and he said, if I get hit by a bus, I would tell my dad, ask Bryan Danielson to book the shows and be in charge of the shows. So there's obviously a lot of respect, a lot of trust there. Bless Bryan Danielson. Again, I will continue to say it. That's the GOAT, in my opinion, not only on screen in the ring as a professional wrestler, but as a human being. I don't know Bryan Danielson. I've listened to enough interviews with Bryan Danielson, certainly. Just some of his philosophies and things are a little out there and outrageous, but otherwise seems like a very good human being with a lot of the correct morals that you would want out of a person as a wrestler or just out of a human being as well.
Yeah, for sure. I believe we share a birthday as well. I think his birthday is May 22nd.
Really?
I'm almost positive me and him.
I don't know what Bryan Danielson's birthday is.
And then coincidentally,
May 22nd. Yes, yeah, you're correct.
And then I'm pretty sure Jericho shares a birthday with my dad. Small world stuff. November 7th.
My birthday is a week from Friday, Jensen. I expect big plans from everybody.
We have to, we have a celebration here on the Spotlight. We'll do something to celebrate. With another thing with Danielson that I think is interesting, worth mentioning throughout all this, because you mentioned that Tony Khan said that he would, like, if he got hit by a bus, he would tell Shad Khan to ask Danielson to help take things over. And Danielson said that him and Tony Khan talked about how for like a while Danielson was just shadowing Tony Khan, like he was traveling with him everywhere. And Tony said that Danielson got pretty like burnt out on that pretty quick because Tony, it's like we don't see it with our own eyes very often, but Tony Khan, with all the stuff he does, his travel schedule is completely insane. And Danielson was with him, and he said that Danielson, or I can't remember if Danielson was talking about it or if he was talking about it, but Danielson apparently recommended that Tony Khan hire Jimmy Jacobs to just be with him all the time. And so apparently Jimmy Jacobs just travels with him everywhere, helps him with creative and all this stuff. And I know obviously they hired more people like Will Washington and stuff. Like it sounds like they suck out help because Tony just got so much going on, so many ideas, and he's got to be all over the place. And it's just so ironic how Jimmy Jacobs wound up being that guy. Like he lost his job in the WWE by taking a selfie with his friends, and now he's kind of like one of the guys in charge over there now, which is kind of crazy how that all worked out too. So. But I think that's really smart for Tony Khan to have people around him like that he You can, at a moment's notice, just be like, hey, we need to jump on a plane right now and go do this. And Jimmy Jacobs is just available to do that. I think that's smart.
Yeah, Bryan Danielson is about that family life. He can't be traveling all over the place with Tony Khan. Tony Khan lives a quick lifestyle especially with all the jobs he has going on. Danielson, he can't be doing all that.
No.
But yeah, that was Danielson again seems like a smart guy when it comes to this, and he knew or felt Tony Khan needed help in this area, or knew he maybe not the right person for the job, and so he's like, hey, what about give Jimmy Jacobs a shot? So I look forward to seeing more of Bryan Danielson on AEW Collision. I look forward to just seeing more of Bryan Danielson in general. I'm glad he's back. I'm glad he's cleared. I'm glad he's healthy. It sucks that he missed All In, because it seems like he was cleared. Seems like he was cleared the Wednesday before All Out, so just missed All In. The plans reportedly were Omega for All In. I know Nigel talked about potentially doing a match. It sucks that he missed that moment at All In, but they're going back next year. Hopefully, gets it then. It's just good to see the GOAT back. Answer a couple of super chats here before we move on to our other AEW spotlight. If the last two AEW shows taught me anything, is that the company is far better off with that cancer from Lockport gone, not from my Chicago.
I feel like a lot of people feel that way. It's probably just a big weight off a lot of people's shoulders. Like, obviously, CM Punk has his fans. He has friends that are wrestlers. A lot of wrestlers vouching for him and stuff. Like, it's not like he's on an island completely by himself and nobody likes him. It's just, I feel like there's a lot of people who can now just kind of breathe and be like, all right, let's just move on,
And then Alex Diaz says, Punk feelings aside, top 5 matches for him at WWE. Assuming you mean like going back to WWE, I would say like the Roman. I'm not gonna sit here and knock CM Punk as like a draw or anything. Like the man proved he can move merchandise, move ratings, move tickets. So you got to put him in there against top guys. I think a Roman program is a big business program. I think with Seth, there's a big story already built in. Seth was calling him out back when Punk took the WWE backstage job. And Punk just kind of shot that down, which is hilarious because Seth was trying to shoot himself into a work and Punk just shot it down and was like, no. And then Seth just moved on, and Punk tried to shoot himself into multiple works with AEW, and they said no, and Punk could not just move on from some of that stuff. But I think a Seth program would be big. Owens, there's history there. That was the reported something that was pitched, talked about, an idea, whatever it might be. I think a Kevin Owens program would be good. I know you're not going to like it, Jensen, but Cody would certainly be a big program for CM Punk. And then Miz would be the other fantastic program.
Honestly, you mentioned all the ones that really would stick out to me. CM Punk versus Kevin Owens being reported out there kind of as an idea that could have potentially happened if CM Punk, because there was the rumors and stuff out there that CM Punk wanted to return to WWE and wrestle Kevin Owens and stuff. Interested that would be the choice though, considering not just because of their history, but because Kevin Owens is really good friends with the Young Bucks.
Yeah.
And his enemies are Owens' best friends. So it's really strange. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Jeremy. Did you say something?
Oh, I was going to say, you remember the after Brawl Out happened last year, Owens just posted the picture of him in Austin because that was CM Punk's dream, basically, to wrestle Steve Austin, certainly to main event WrestleMania. And Kevin Owens did that. And there's the whole thing of Punk making the comment about him wrestling in a t-shirt. Was it a joke? Was it overblown? Yeah, Owens is very good friends with the Young Bucks. He was the one that, they've told this story. He was the one that recommended the Young Bucks and Cody link up when Cody left WWE. So, Owens is very much on that side. I don't know. That feels like another thing when it comes to Punk, who likes to play these kind of PR games and stuff. That feels like one of those of I'll work with Kevin Owens, who was great friends with the Young Bucks. Look at the Young Bucks who will not work with me or take a meeting with me or even speak to me. But this guy, I'll work with their best friend, one of their good friends type of thing. That's what that felt like to me when I read that story.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But thanks for the super chat, Alex. I think Jeremy, I think you covered the main ones that stick out as opponents for Punk potentially. So
LA Knight as well.
Man, I'd love to see LA Knight go over CM Punk. Yeah, let's go, babe. You want to turn me into an LA Knight fan? Have him feud with CM Punk and actually go over. That would be. Ooh, yeah, man. I will buy a LA Knight T-shirt immediately and wear it on this show every week throughout that feud until he beats CM Punk.
Jensen, your AEW spotlight is the great Christian Cage being an absolute menace on the microphone, on commentary. He was in the corner of Luchasaurus for All Out. Luchasaurus retained, or Christian Cage, I guess, retained the AEW TNT title over Darby Allin. And then he did the backstage segment with Nick Wayne last night on Dynamite. And then he was on commentary last night during Nick Wayne and Darby Allin as well. Thoughts on Christian Cage, Jensen?
Dude, okay. I want to preface this by the way of saying that, like, when I chose this topic, like, I care about you a lot, Jeremy. Like legit. I'm not saying this to be like, I'm being sincere right here. Like, I know you lost your father recently. I got to meet him at your wedding. Like, I know and I didn't even think about that because I'm about to go in kind of hard on this topic. Like, because Christian Cage's gimmick as a heel is so good. It's so good.
It is.
And when you're taking jabs at people's dead parents, like, I mean, my mom's passed away, right? So, I mean, I understand, like, if someone started saying this stuff about my mom, I don't even know how to react, probably. I'd be, like, just confused that an adult would even go there. The fact that Christian Cage has made his gimmick the man that attacks people over their dead parents, and he's just so ice cold in his delivery. Even at the press conference, someone brought up like, hey, Adam Copeland, maybe free agent, and, like, you know, would it be cool to see him around, kind of thing. And Christian was like, I don't have any friends or care about anybody except for this title, Luchasaurus. And it was just like,
he started his press conference. He sat down and he's like, how's everybody's fathers doing?
Right. Yeah.
Just deadpan, just saying it. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. Look, I understand.
I thought he was going to lose it, by the way, because, like, and this is nothing against, like, the wrestling media, because we have a lot of friends in those rooms when this stuff's happening. But, like, so Tony, this is one critique I'll give, and I don't know, because I don't know if they're told ahead of time how long Tony's going to be out there. Like, I don't know if they know before the wrestlers start coming out, if, like, Tony's going to be staying afterwards and answering questions for them, like, by himself.
Because he does that every press conference.
Which is what I thought. Because they modeled this after and you know this because you just covered the UFC as well. Dana White, they started, like, this kind of whole post-fight scrum concept after UFC shows back in the day, and he would stick around forever and answer all these questions for the media, mainly for Ariel Helwani before they had a massive falling out. And my point is, so when Christian came out, the first handful of minutes he was sitting there, they were just asking Tony questions. They were like, Christian, good to see you, big fan, but, like, Tony, you know, this or that, Tony, this or that. And I thought Christian was about to take the microphone and be like, all right, see ya. Like, I'm wasting my time here. Like, why aren't you asking me? I'm sitting here. I'm the champion. You're not asking me anything. And instead, though, he almost did something even better. He just sat there like he was bored. He just, like, just sat there dead-faced until someone said something to him. And then when he would give him a question, he would just give him a full-on just heel answer. Like, there was no... Because even like, you know, like Adam Cole or some of these other guys go up and they do their press conference and they're pretty inside baseball about stuff. They're, like, talking about, like, the booking and, like, being injured and, like, this and that. And Christian is just committed to being an asshole. And he's doing it on television so well. You know, with MJF and Adam Cole and these kind of guys being, I think MJF as a heel is the best heel in wrestling when he's a heel. But right now he's working as a babyface. And with MJF as a babyface, Adam Cole as a babyface, Christian's the best heel in AEW easily, in my opinion. And depending on how you look at the Bloodline story, because Roman is a heel, obviously, but he's also, like, got a lot of fans. Like, I feel like Christian's the best heel in wrestling right now. For what I like in wrestling, I think he's he's knocking it out of the park right now. And that's for a guy who, when he came into AEW, it felt like to be honest, it was kind of like an underwhelming announcement when the big show said like someone big was coming into the company, and he came in, he won the Impact title from Kenny in a really big moment. He had a good run with that, but what he's done now since flipping the switch is like they're getting massive value out of Christian right now for AEW, and I believe he just re-signed as well. So like,
That's what he said, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So I really just want to come in here and spotlight just praising Christian that after all these years, the time off he had with injury, all this stuff, always being second fiddle to Edge for so long in his career, right now, like if I think if most people had their pick, right, like 2023 Edge or 2023 Christian, I think most people are going to go Christian, like hands down.
I have said this for years.
No, I know you have.
Years.
I'm laying all this out for you. This is a softball for you. So
it is, because for years, decades even, they've been around that long. Decades. Christian, always better than Edge. I understand people are underwhelmed by the announcements of Christian, especially AEW had such a track record of like building up these announcements. I mean, we had Danielson come in, we had Adam Cole come in. Christian had just kind of returned and people didn't know what to expect. And I didn't even know what to expect. Like, okay, Christian's there. Like I thought it was cool. I don't think I was down on it. It's like, that's a good pickup. I don't know what to expect from it. I don't know how much he has left, but that's a good pickup because I've always just been a fan of Christian dating back to really since he went out on his own. I got that's how I roll shirt on. I don't have it on right now, but I have that shirt.
I believe you.
Loved Christian. Still do. He is on such a roll right now as this heel character because you're right. Like he's always been at his best when he's been like a little prick. And he is such an unapologetic prick right now. I don't know if you've seen that video where he's at like the convention and like there's a little girl and she has a title belt and he takes her title belt and he holds on to both titles and he has this look on his face and just
he's the champion now.
Disappointment that this little girl is holding this title or has this title at all. And then the video does not cut off in time. He gives the title back, big smile on his face, like big joking thing, but like he's so good at this. Yeah, when he does the Nick Wayne thing, he's like, "Tell your mom I said hi."
Yeah,
I was like, "Oh my god."
Also, I don't know about his personal life. Is he, not that it necessarily matters, but is he married, Christian?
I believe they did legitimately get divorced.
Oh, okay. Because I'm about to say like that makes it even like more of an asshole move. Like if he is married, like you know what I mean? Like he's like he's still saying stuff like that. But it's man. What? I love too because this all ties together with like the main event from Dynamite and everything last night too. Like I love how they've incorporated this story with Darby and Nick. Like even though I don't like that Darby wouldn't cough and drop him and stuff, like you got to still try to win these matches. But the fact that we are essentially getting like a Nick Wayne Christian feud out of this also is just. It's just wild that like this is happening and that it just makes so much sense. And I bet a big part of the idea was literally Tony and the decision makers at AEW being like, dude, the Christian Jack Perry dead dad stuff were really good. Nick Wayne is everyone knows his dad, Buddy Wayne, and like it just kind of all is perfectly lined up for something like this.
I can understand the people who feel a little uncomfortable with it. I know it's a wrestling show. I'm fine. It's become a meme and a bit and hilarious to me at this point. Like I pop when he's just like, heard you got a father.
Yeah.
heard you don't have a father anymore. Like heard about your dad, basically. I actually, look, this is coming from me, who you mentioned, Jensen. I lost my dad 3 months ago. This is coming from me at the press conference. And I understand why people would not do this. But at the press conference, I thought anybody who asked the Christian a question, I thought they would need to state the status of their dad. And then just like I would have gone into that press conference and I would have been like, Christian, lost my dad 3 months ago, and just see what his reaction would be to that. And if he buried me and my father, honestly would have been an honor. Would have been an honor for that.
I honestly think, I could be completely wrong, I think he would bury you in front of the crowd, and then he'd probably find out what outlet you work for and be like,
I think so too.
Yeah, it'd be like, hey, dude, I just gotta do what I gotta do, man. Like,
but like, I would have put him on the spot of that, of just seeing like, all right, can you stay in character through this? Because I would imagine he asked Nick Wayne, he asked whoever, Jungle Boy, he asked like, hey, can I bring this up? Can we talk about this?
That's what's even funnier is I think I saw a tweet about this. Best case scenario, worst case scenario, he's just going out there and saying this about people.
Yeah, I tweeted this.
Oh, you said that's a great tweet. I didn't realize that was you. I definitely retweeted that. That is a great tweet. Jeremy said, best case scenario, he's going up and asking. Worst case scenario, he's just going out there and saying it. So it's like, either way, it's awkward as hell that like this to do this at all. People have to agree to this, right? Or they're not agreeing and he's just doing it.
Yeah, like he's either going out there and he's just saying it, or he's got to ask an 18-year-old kid, like, hey, can I bring up your dead dad in this promo? Super Kick Party Bus says you'd use your dad's fresh death as a bit. You have a twisted sense of humor. I do. Like, anyone who knows me kind of knows that. But look, my dad supported what I do. I would understand. I get that it's pro wrestling and everything. Like I would legitimately do it again just to see what Christian would do. Could I break him with this? Like, could I get him to just say like, hey man, I'm sorry about that? Or would he actually go in and be like, yeah, I don't know what he would say, but would he actually like say something? And then if he did, it's kind of an honor to have Christian say something about that. Like, I don't know. Maybe it is a twisted.
No. I understand where you're coming from. 100%.
My mom would rewatch this and be like, I'm never speaking to you again. But maybe it's a twisted sense of humor. I don't know. I feel you got to laugh at this stuff because otherwise you just feel awful about it. So
absolutely. I mean, and the other thing about this too with like I love that he's not just digging at just the idea that people's parents are dead, but like he's like his promo or his confrontation last night with Nick Wayne. He's like, this is such great heel stuff. He's like, Nick, I'm sorry. I found out about your dad. I know he wrestles now. I finally watched some matches and stuff with him. I told you I thought he was bad. I apologize. He's way worse than I thought he was. I'm just like, oh my God, that's so good. Because like Buddy Wayne was, for all intents and purposes, on like mainstream wrestling. He was a jobber, but he was like a legend, like locally. And he trained a lot of people and stuff. So like, but it's one of those things where it's just like, I can't get over how good of just how it's the most basic, like not basic, but it's like, it seems so obvious what he's doing and he's just doing it so perfectly and he can back it up in the ring. So like, there's going to be payoffs to all this stuff. So like, I love it.
I think what helps is I don't know Christian personally. I've met him once, I think, but from all the stories, very nice guy. From what people say, very nice guy. I remember there was a AW show. I think we were in Pittsburgh, and we were at the hotel bar afterwards. We were with Luther, and Luther and Christian go back way. This is actually, it was after Christian won the Impact title, first episode of Rampage, from Kenny Omega. We were there, and we were and Christian's there at the bar. It was a babyface this time. But he's just talking to everybody, hanging out, taking pictures, being nice to anybody who comes up to him and everything. And like, I think anyone who has heard actual stories of Christian, they know he's a very nice guy. And by all accounts, very nice guy. So when he's just playing this character on television and doing this and staying in character, it's a little bit easier of a pill to swallow of like, I can separate the wrestling character from the actual person, especially if he's a person who hasn't like done anything awful in his life.
When has been in the spot in the world of wrestling for like 3 decades or whatever and like hasn't done something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's part of, I think it's pretty safe to say Christian's probably a pretty good dude.
Yes. So yeah, he hasn't done anything like actually awful in his personal life. So I can very easily separate that between them. So that's why I think it's hilarious. I understand if people are uncomfortable, people don't like it. It is easy kind of heat. I do understand that. He plays it so well though. He plays it so damn well. And I was like, when Luchasaurus won the title, it's like, what? Huh? Because Wardlow had just gotten it back. They hot potatoed that title so much. And it was like, what are we doing here? Now putting the title on Luchasaurus. It's like, well, okay, Christian's the champion? Okay, that I'm behind. I'm behind Christian being the champion. And using Luchasaurus basically as his wrestler proxy out there. I'm behind that. But yeah, he's made this so good. Bless Christian.
See, that's the thing. It isn't just the dead dad jabs. It isn't just because he's also, once again, he's adding story onto this, and everything you like you just said, like it's like there's a whole other story within that story of Christian carrying around this title belt, and Luchasaurus is his surrogate, basically, like you're saying. Like Luchasaurus is doing all the work, and Christian's carrying this belt around, and he's like belittling other people for not being champions. Like he'll be talking about this title belt and stuff and be like, you got a real champion here in the room, like, treat me with respect and stuff. And it's like, I love that his character is this like combination of like just an asshole that's like delusional but methodical at the same time, and like, and he's a coward, but he can back it up if he needed to, and like Luchasaurus is just doing all the work for him. It's a very, and then eventually Luchasaurus is probably going to get tired of this, and there's a whole other story in that. There potentially, if and when Jack Perry returns from his, we found out he's indefinitely suspended. Tony Khan, confirmed that at the media scrum. But when Jack Perry comes back too, it's like there's maybe legs in putting those guys back together as heels to do stuff together or something. I don't even know. Like, but it's just one of those things where like I just feel like this opens up the possibility so much for Christian going forward. And it's great it's great. I once again can't say enough good things. I know you're already a Christian fan. I'm a Christian fan as well, but like I'm one of those guys who like I was a bit underwhelmed with kind of what Christian was doing since losing the Impact title. And I never really understood his pairing with Jurassic Express, because I was like, where'd Marco Stunt go? I love Marco, but it feels like Marco just got replaced by Christian. It was weird. It obviously led to something, good, but it just feels like Christian's finally found like this is the spot for him in AEW. And I also think he answered that question about Edge. I don't think he answered that without any thought. I think the reason he answered that question the way that he did is because I think there is a chance that Adam Copeland is coming to AEW. And I think if he does, I think Edge is going to come in. It's going to be some sort of story where he comes in and he's like, dude, what have you become? Like, you are a monster. What is this? Like, talking the stuff you're talking about. Like, maybe you can build a feud between Edge versus Christian, and eventually maybe they rekindle and like you get some Edge and Christian matches like before they retire as a tag team or something. I don't know, but it just felt to me like, for them to bring up Edge in the press conference, Christian or Tony or anyone could have really just no commented or completely no sold it, or Christian could have been like, yeah, I don't know what the future is for him, but we've been friends for 40 years or whatever. So
Christian did no sell it. He's like, I ain't got this friend.
But he didn't completely no sell because he said that. That's kind of my point. Is he said that Edge isn't even his friend. He said he didn't even care about.
Yeah, but he was doing a character.
No, I know. That's the point. Is like that. I think that if there are plans for Edge to come into AEW, you're planting the seeds already for like Christian and doesn't care about Edge anymore. Right. And Edge can come in and be like, I saw that press conference. I see what you're saying about these people's parents. I've known you forever. Like, what the hell?
I think it works both ways. Either Christian, I mean, it was an in-character response of like, I have no friends. So yes, Edge can come in and call him out on that. Christian can basically give nothing away of Edge potentially not coming in or coming in. And if Edge doesn't come in, then okay, Christian just dismissed them as not one of his friends. So I think the way he played it was smart, because if you give like no comment type of thing, I think that gives more credence to like, oh, now he probably is coming in. Otherwise, and you can't comment on it anyway because he's still technically under WWE contract. So
Right.
I think Christian handled that very well.
Agreed.
And Tony didn't do anything. Tony just left the question.
Yeah. So I just think I think it's possible that Edge could be coming in. I think there was a possibility this whole time, but like I think there might be some real weight to that potentially. But anyway, we can probably wrap up that topic now. Unless you got anything else to add about Christian, but congratulations to Christian Cage, dude. What a great run he's on as a heel. I love it.
I'm going to pull up the super chat from Battery Leg before we move on. Just for you guys to say, thanks for being level-headed in this chaos of wrestling news. Just being positive guys that help me enjoy this crazy sport I watch. Thank you. Thank you for supporting
thanks.
Battery Leg.
Much
We try to be level-headed sometimes.
Yeah, every now and then I get a little heated, show a little bias, have to address my enemies every now and then, but today wasn't the day for that. Like, I think y'all have already heard enough of my thoughts on a lot of that stuff. Like, I'm done being a broken record. I'm done. I'm tired of talking about that stuff. Y'all are tired of hearing me talk about it. Like, I'd much rather be talking about stuff like Christian Cage is an amazing heel than all this other BS. So we appreciate that super chat. Thanks to you and everyone else who joins us on these shows. That's either whether you're chatting or you're just watching or whatever, man. Like, we appreciate it.
We do. Thank you guys. Leave a thumbs up on the video. I don't say that enough, but leave a thumbs up on the video.
Yeah, we never promote that kind of stuff. If you want to send super chats, like, we won't put them on the screen. We will answer them. But this is more of a show where me and Jeremy just like to come in here and talk to each other about wrestling once a week. But if you guys want to get in on the show, we'll always answer your questions.
Let's move on to our WWE spotlight.
I need to finish the story. In the WWE, the story never finishes.
One story that is not finished, and who knows when it will finish, is Gunther's Intercontinental Championship reign. He, depending on who you believe, he's either setting the record today or he sets it tomorrow. Regardless, he's going to set the record because he defeated Chad Gable on Raw to retain the championship. He's not going to have another match unless he shows up on Impact tonight or something. He's not going to have another match. There's no event scheduled. So WWE recognizes some Honky Tonk Man's is 453 days, which means that was yesterday. So Gunther would set the record today. It's actually recognized by other official record keepers, which I always defer to Cage Match on, as 454 days, which would be today, which means tomorrow Gunther would set the record. Regardless, he's setting the record. Longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time, a record that has stood since 1988. And now Gunther now has that record. Jensen, your thoughts?
Well, 1988, so that would have been 35 years because that's you were born. That's easy to do the math on that.
Yes.
But yeah, that's crazy, man. Because I know that the title's been around for 44 years. So for it to be a 35-year long record at the Honky Tonk Man. And it's kind of weird now because then I'm not saying like I actually really love this, by the way. I'm going to get into that. But for our whole lives, it's just always been like a stat or like something you said about wrestling, like Intercontinental title. Yeah, Honky Tonk Man. You know, like that was always like he held the title for you. He has the record. And like we always felt for like that no one would probably ever break that because they hot potato that title so much over the years, or they'd completely discontinue the title and like reintroduce it and stuff over the years too. But so first of all, congratulations to Honky Tonk Man for having a record that stood for so long. Like that's pretty damn cool. And people will always remember him for that. Now, the main event of Raw, Gable versus Gunther. First off, this match ruled. Like this was a great wrestling match. I love that there was callbacks to like Gable beating him with like the count out and stuff and their matches previous. And listen, I don't think that anybody out there really thought that Chad Gable was going to win this match because like WWE is in this mode right now, especially with Roman and stuff, where they're like breaking records and kind of rewriting history and stuff like that. And I think they're doing that for a few, like multiple reasons, by the way, because there's, anyway, I think that they're kind of going through and they're kind of rewriting history in certain ways. And and I think all part of it has to do with their companies they're changing ownership and stuff. And I just feel like it's kind of like a new era for the company in a lot of ways. And I think that not many people, I don't think, expected Chad Gable to win, but I think that they did a really good job of at least building somebody to where it's like, this would make sense. Like storyline wise, it would at least make sense if Chad Gable won this match with beating him by count out, with how close he's gotten, with how good of a wrestler Gable is, and how he's been able to how tough he is and how he's been able to stick it out during these matches and stuff. I think, once again, even though I didn't once go into that match thinking like Gable's going to win this, I was like, you know what? This is so much better than just like a random person getting a title shot. It's so much better than just grabbing someone off Raw and being like, all right, Gunther's, got one more title defense until he's, got the record. Who we got? And you just pick somebody and it's like, all right, Gunther, go out there and beat him and go on. You're going to get the record. This was at least built for like a month or whatever plus of like Gable getting this real shot. And he took real advantage of it. Like, this was a really, really good match. The suplexes Gable hit, that last, the sleeper suplex that Gunther hit at the end, that looked like the Gable landed on his head, but he didn't. But it looked like it did initially. It just looked so brutal. I love the finish, and I love that Gunther finishes matches with different stuff. Like, you never know if it's gonna. He might chop you like he did with Ciampa. He might just chop you, and you just can't take it anymore. Similar to I always compare that finish to Ciampa versus Walter or Gunther as it reminds me of the second fight between Rory McDonald and Robbie Lawler, where it was like the best fight in UFC history. It got all the way in, I believe, into the fourth round, and the fourth or the fifth, I can't remember. But I remember the end of it was basically Lawler just like threw a jab that hit McDonald in the face, in the nose, and because of all the damage that McDonald had suffered up to that point, the jab took him out. His body just couldn't handle it anymore. It just shut down, and he fell over, and just like that was it. That's a Gunther match to me. Is like, he breaks you down to a point where it doesn't matter what his finishing move is. He can chop you, he can clothesline, you can powerbomb you, you can splash you off the top rope. It doesn't matter. And I love the unpredictability in that, and the danger that he possesses in every one of his moves. All of his moves matter, and that's rare in wrestling, I think. He does it really, really damn well. So I love that finish with where he hits that sleeper suplex, power bomb, clothesline, looks stiff as hell. 1, 2, 3, and Gable came out of this elevated. Like, you look at Chad Gable in a different light. You see him more as a single star. They've made it really, they've really kept getting over the idea that Gable's never won a singles title in WWE. So I feel like that's going to happen eventually, and they have that on their mind when they're booking this stuff going forward. So I love the main event. I love that what it's done for Gable, and I think that Gunther not only has this elevated the Intercontinental title and elevated Gunther and everything. Whenever he loses the IC title, or even better, eventually, what they probably should do, let me know if you agree with this or not, and I want your thoughts on all this as well, because I know I'm going off for a while. Would it be better for him to eventually lose that title to somebody and like really put somebody over, for finally beating him? Or do you do him versus Roman, like Warrior versus Hogan type style eventually? And because at that point, what better way of building a threat than this guy who's held this title for this long and hasn't been beaten for this title going into a match like that?
I like the idea of Gunther and Roman. I don't think they're going that route. I think it makes sense, though, especially with the way they've built up Gunther. And I've said this before, but he's broken the record now. I still want him to hold the title. I don't think it should just be, okay, break the record and then drop it. Don't drop it the next pay-per-view, which I believe is at the end of September, maybe beginning of go ahead.
Oh, just really quick. Sorry. I always forget, but there's this other title. It might not even be just Roman, but maybe this idea also potentially with the world title, that's with whoever the champion on Raw is. I want to throw that out there too as a possibility. Sorry.
If he beats Seth, Seth has the belt right now. I think that makes a little bit more sense than going after. Roman makes the most sense because I think everybody should want to go after Roman. He's the long reigning champion. He is the top of the mountain. But Seth, with the story that they're telling that he's banged up and stuff, it would make sense for Gunther to be like, all right, I'll take you out and take this title as well. But I want Gunther to keep the title for a while still. I don't want him to drop it the next pay-per-view. I definitely don't want him to drop it the Raw or anything. Keep it till at least Survivor Series. I think you can even keep it until Rumble or Mania with him. My sort of off the top of the head idea or would be Rumble. He loses it at Rumble. Who that is, I think whoever it is, you either got to have a good long-term plan for, or you've got to certainly make it mean something. Gable built himself up enough to where you could run that back at Rumble, and that would be a big moment for Gable. And I think there's life in a Chad Gable IC title run. I know people are saying Ilya because Ilya beat him in NXT UK, and there's a lot of people who cannot slay Gunther. Maybe Ilya is the person that Gunther cannot slay. So I think that makes sense. Sheamus is another one where Sheamus is already made and doesn't necessarily need the title, but because he's never held it, him winning that title and ending Gunther's reign, I think is a huge moment for him. But that's where it comes down to, okay, Sheamus is made. Like, you want to try to make somebody by having them beat Gunther and in this reign. And then after this for Gunther, I think he's got to be elevated into the next title off of this. That was always the thing in the 90s with the IC title. Is like, okay, you have this title, you hold it for however long, you lose, you're elevated. And that's what it needs to become, especially after this reign of, I can't have Gunther losing this title and then he's just kind of still in the mid-card position. He needs to immediately, or almost immediately, maybe you beat somebody to gain a little momentum back with a win. But then you go into the world title picture. And Roman certainly makes sense on that. I just don't know if that's where they're going. I don't know where they're going with Roman. Honestly, it seems like it's all bloodline stuff. And I do think the end game should be Cody at WrestleMania 40. So then with Gunther, you go to the Raw title and whoever holds the title at that point going into WrestleMania 40.
Yeah, I'm with you on all of that. I mean, the good thing for Gunther is clearly, like, you wouldn't give him a run like this unless Vince, Triple H, like, whoever's, like, making these decisions is, like, all in on the idea of Gunther being a top star for them. And also, he made it to the end of the Royal Rumble. Him and Cody went at it. Pretty sure had, like, a full match with each other before the end of that thing. I would love to see Gunther even maybe win the Royal Rumble. I mean, or something. I mean, so, yeah, keep pushing Gunther. And this is also a testament, really quick. I said for years, I've always liked Gunther. He really blew up after that PCO match on the Indies, and then I covered a lot of his stuff on the Indies after that, and I covered NXT UK the entire run that show existed. I covered all those episodes for the Weekender, so got to see that whole run. And like, I remember I was saying that whole time, I was like, this is really cool, but this is the best it's going to get for him, because the second Vince sees him, he's just not going to take him seriously. Like, as unfair as it is, I was like, he's just not going to take him seriously. He's going to see him as generic. He's going to think he's overweight, this and that. We've seen this a lot of times with guys that are really talented but didn't have the physique that Vince likes. And I remember Gunther came in, or Walter at the time, he did like a Survivor Series match or something, and they brought him in, and he got pinned by like Brock or someone, like almost immediately. Like, do you remember what I'm talking about? He came in, they brought him up while he was
people were very mad that he got pinned so quickly in that Survivor Series match.
Right. And I was like, see, and I remember telling people at the time, I was like, see, like, this is exactly what I've been saying. And this is what I'm fearing. And that's why I felt like NXT UK or NXT was just going to be the best it got for him. But whatever happened where he got to that main roster, I can only assume someone came up to him and was just like, listen, we think you're really, really good in the ring. You've built a great reputation for yourself. Just leave and just get in better shape. Just come back in better shape. He has made just a complete body transformation where, like, and the thing is, he still looks generic, right? He just looks like but he doesn't need the flash. Like, it's the, and the reason I bring all of this up about like the body transformation is because I think Vince probably saw that and he was like, there's a top star right there. We told the dude to go. He did what we told him to. He came back in this kind of shape. He already had the wrestling talent and the skills and the reputation and the respect of the locker room. Now we can go all the way with this guy. And whether it's fair or not, I don't know. But I think there's a very clear correlation between Gunther and what I think the plans were him before he went and he got in shape and what he's at right now. I think it's just night and day difference how the company probably looks at him.
You mentioned it, and Greg Carter here mentions it. Lose the title at the Rumble, then wins the Rumble. You mentioned him potentially winning the Rumble. Here is my sort of not issue. Look, I'm fine if Gunther wins the Rumble. He wins the Rumble, though. You go after Roman. I think it's stupid if anybody wins the Rumble and is like, you know what? I want this title instead of the main event against Roman Reigns. And I know you, as the Cody fan, probably don't want to see Gunther and Roman Reigns headline WrestleMania. I know you much prefer that being Cody.
I would, of course, but listen, I will give Gunther all the credit in the world. Like he's such a great just professional wrestler. I just love the whole just ring general thing, and I think that Imperium is really great. And even just the idea, people, you and some people in the chat mentioning Ilya Dragunov maybe being the guy. Have they? Is he on Raw or SmackDown yet, or is he still?
No, he's in NXT.
Okay, because he is fantastic on NXT UK. He was actually the guy that I was saying, like, if anyone's going to beat Walter, it should just be him. Either I was saying it should be him or Tyler Bate. I think the world of Tyler Bate as well. I think he's incredible. Is he on Raw or SmackDown yet, Tyler Bate?
No, also in NXT.
What in the world is taking so long with that? Anyway, that's a whole other thing. He was like 19 when he won that UK tournament for the title or whatever, and he could have been a major star then, and it's taken this long. Anyway, Ilya Dragunov, I think there's some good options there, but I don't think that you can really pencil in Dragunov for something like that because he hasn't even debuted on Raw or SmackDown yet. And same kind of thing for like Braun Breaker and that kind of stuff. I know he's popped in and out, but he hasn't like made the full move. So I don't know, but yeah, congratulations to Gunther. It's cool that we got to see history, happen in front of us. So
yeah. My WWE spotlight this week is the Steel City Street Fight that took place at WWE Payback between Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn against Judgment Day, Finn Balor, and Damian Priest. There's been something missing to me for Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn's title run. Injuries didn't help. I know Owens was hurt for a little bit, but unfortunately the peak was kind of at WrestleMania, which I was hoping for a little bit better after that. There was the Night of Champions match, and the build to that was good against Roman and Solo, but that, of course, became more about bloodline stuff of Roman, Solo, Usos, and everything. Otherwise, like, they didn't defend the titles on pay-per-view. They had the match against, like, Pretty Deadly on the SmackDown before Money in the Bank, I believe. I don't really recall any of their title defenses. They certainly weren't, like, in a big feud except for Judgment Day, which seemed like it went on forever. And then Owens got hurt, and so they had to sideline him for a few weeks, and then it just became Sami. This was a match that their title reign needed. It's unfortunate that they lost this match because I think winning it would have done just more for the title reign overall, but I understand right now they're going with Judgment Day and basically just trying to make Judgment Day the dominant faction because Roman and Bloodline have kind of split. Roman's off TV for however long he's going to be off TV for. This is a way to potentially get Judgment Day on SmackDown because now they are technically the SmackDown champions as well, so they could show up on that show. But I thought this was a very good match, a match that, again, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn really once again just proved why they are two of the best performers in the world. And a match they probably should have just been having this entire title run. It's a shame that it took to the end of this title run to get to this point with them.
Yeah, I agree with that too, that it felt like something was kind of missing. And part of it, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, but I think part of it was the missed opportunity in putting the title on Cody at WrestleMania, because that was honestly, because that was intertwined with the story of Owens and Zayn, like the versus the Bloodline. And when Cody didn't do that, I think that pigeonholed a lot of the possible storylines coming out of that, where like Cody is the champion, Sami and KO as the tag champions could have been like their own kind of like group, and we just didn't get any of that. So yeah, I like the street fight a lot. I mean, they did some crazy stuff during that thing. Kevin Owens, I was happy he didn't hurt himself on that swanton off the like in the crowd.
Yeah, that looked
down
awesome.
On it. It looked awesome.
It looked like it sucked, but it was awesome.
But I always get nervous, especially after like, was it oh my gosh, which one? Oh, Top Flight. that injury off the ladder, the ankle when they went through the tables.
Oh, at ROH, yeah, Dante.
Yeah, Dante. I was blanking on. I was going to call him Darius. But like you see stuff like that, right? And obviously that's such a freak injury, but like when Owens came off that and he landed and he grabbed his wrist, I was like, oh no, did he did he land on his wrist? Like that. Well, there's so many things that can go wrong in a spot like that. But Kevin Owens is the guy who loves those opportunities. I know he's talked about how at WrestleMania a couple years ago when they had like the big pirate ship as a part of the set,
Yes.
he was like, I want to jump off the highest part of. I think he wanted to jump off of like the top of like the arena if it was possible. You know what I mean? Like, so that was so it was it Darius that got hurt? It was Darius.
It was it was Dante. Dante got hurt at ROH. Darius is still wrestling.
Darius is still wrestling with Action Andrade.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting them mixed up. I don't know why. But anyway, then when you see stuff like that, it's crazy.
Darius has been hurt as well, but guys, Darius was just in the over budget battle royal this past weekend. I promise you, he's the one wrestling, and Dante is the one who got hurt in the ladder match at ROH. But Darius has also suffered injuries, so they've unfortunately both suffered not good looking injuries.
Yes, 100%. So anyway, the reason I brought all that up is because like a lot of things can happen. We've seen it happen. I'm glad everyone in that match is okay, considering some of the stuff they did. I thought it was cool how how Owens and Zayn like disappeared and then reappeared in the Penguins jerseys. Yeah, which I'm sure you like as an NHL fan. And then I almost just messed it up myself, but I thought it was funny that Michael Cole was like, out here, Pittsburgh Steelers, and Corey Graves is like, it's the Penguins. This is the NHL team. This isn't the like they got it wrong on commentary. I thought it was kind of funny. And they were fired up. I know it's kind of weird because those guys aren't Penguins fans because they're like so about like their home.
Yeah, they're Montreal Canadiens fans, but Sidney Crosby, Mario Lemieux, both won their two Penguins greats, but they're also two of the best Canadian players. I mean, they're just two of the best players of all time, but they happen to be Canadian. So I think that was also why they went with those jerseys.
I've actually got, this is so random that I have this here. Something just fell. I have this on my desk, this little Montreal Canadiens hockey stick that my uncle gave me this when I was a baby, because he's a big hockey fan from Canada. So I've actually happened to have this old Canadiens hockey stick here with me, just as you happen to say that. I'm rearranging stuff in my office. But yeah, so I mean, there was a lot of good stuff. And I know I'm missing things too. I mean, the finish of the match was basically Sami Zayn had him dead to rights with the haluva kick. And then, what all kind of happened towards the end was Jaden McDonough comes out and saves the pin. Then for his troubles winds up getting pop-up powerbombed like brutally into the announce table. Like it wasn't even like a pop-up powerbomb, it was almost just like a giant like spine buster, just threw him just back first right into the announce table, which led to Rhea Ripley coming out and spearing Owens through the guardrail. And then when Zayn finally had the match, looked like he was gonna win, was it JD came back in with the Money in the Bank briefcase and hit him? Someone hit him with the briefcase from behind. It was JD. And that, now Judgment Day is the tag champs. So Balor, and that's the thing. It's pretty wild how interesting the Judgment Day is at this point. With like Rhea is, for all intents and purposes, Rhea's a babyface. Dominic is getting more heel heat than like anyone in the company. And then and they're together. You have Balor and Damian, who are kind of like somewhat feuding with one another, but also teaming as the champions. But like they haven't had their big blowout, but like there's a lot of tension there. So like they're all champions, and they all have completely different dynamics. And Priest has the Money in the Bank briefcase on top of all this. So like, I mean, if I was Edge, I'd be like, man, I shouldn't have gotten out of this group.
They kicked him out of the group.
No, I know, but behind the scenes, whatever happened where they decided to like completely shift gears on how they were going to present all of this, somehow this has worked out great for Judgment Day. Cause like, and also the timing with like you said, the bloodline being like broken up or whatever's going on there, they're like the focus of most of the shows now, like plural, Raw and SmackDown and NXT. So it's crazy. Good for them.
Yeah, they're heavily pushing Judgment Day, and look, I think Rhea is an absolute star. Dominic has grown by leaps and bounds since becoming a heel. Those boos are still piped in. Balor has always been a fantastic performer, and Priest has done really well in this role as well. Is it too much sometimes? Maybe. I would have liked to see Kevin and Sammy. I would have liked to see them retain and then be utilized more on SmackDown with things, but then do you do bloodline stuff with them on SmackDown? I think there could have been more for them to do. I think they could have had a really fun feud with like Lashley and the Street Profits as they're getting put together. And maybe that's the direction with Judgment Day, although we're getting kind of Lashley and Street Profits against the Brawling Brutes potentially right now. You know, AJ is over there with the OC. He's feuding with Bloodline right now. So I would have liked to see Kevin and Sammy's run last a little bit longer, at least have a little bit more to it after WrestleMania. WrestleMania was very much the peak, but at least they got a good ending to things with this match, because this was, I thought it was the best match on Payback. The cage match between Trish and Becky was excellent as well, but I enjoyed this one just a little bit more.
I'm with you.
All right, we're going to move on to our other spotlight.
Our product is what it is. We're going straight up the middle.
Friday night, tomorrow night, Victory Road, Impact Victory Road. We have a big-time matchup, at least in my mind. Big-time matchup between Josh Alexander and Steve Maclin. This match was supposed to happen earlier this year when Maclin was going to challenge Josh Alexander for the title. Unfortunately, Alexander got hurt.
Is that
Maclin
Rebellion? It was supposed to happen. Rebellion.
Yeah, I think it was Rebellion. Yeah. Alexander got hurt. Maclin faced Kushida for the vacant title. Maclin won the title, moved on, defended it, lost it to Alex Shelley. And then Maclin ended up getting hurt not too long ago. He is back. Josh Alexander is back. They are going to battle at Impact Victory Road. And I would assume the winner would get a title shot leading into Bound for Glory next month. That is my assumption on things. But I'm really looking forward to this match. I think Maclin and Alexander over the past year plus have been the top two stars as far as singles male goes in Impact. And this is a match that I was really looking forward to at Rebellion for the title. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. And now we're going to get it here on Victory Road. I don't know if they're going to do a some type of time limit, some type of double thing to where they set up a triple threat match at Bound for Glory. I think if I had to pick a winner, I'd probably go Josh Alexander. What are your thoughts on this match, Jensen?
I like that it's happening finally. I agree that they're probably the two most well-built male stars in Impact as well. I think was there a Fightful Select report yesterday about I think I read something about Maclin saying that himself recently as well, how he believes him and Alexander. And I think he mentioned Deonna Purrazzo and Jordan Grace is on the women's side, which I agree with too. I love everyone mentioned there. But I think as far as a winner, I think I'd go Josh Alexander as well. He never lost the title. He might even still be the champion to this day, potentially, like if he had never vacated that title. I doubt it, but like maybe. He was having a great run. Even before he became the world champion, he had a great run as the X Division champion. He had this hour-long match with TJP a while back. That was like, it was like on BTI, but it like carried over into like the first few minutes of the actual Impact show. And I remember that happening and being like, not enough people were talking about this because it was like, but it was like a really, really damn good match. It went like an hour long. If I remember correctly, I could be getting, this was a while back, but I remember Alexander having like a really, really great run with that X Division title. And then, great run with the world title too. So I feel like you got to give him a shot to try to get that title back. And I'd probably have him win it. Honestly, I'd probably have him become the champion again and give him an opportunity to like have another run for a little bit and then actually like lose the title to someone and like put someone over how they maybe were kind of planning to initially. But yeah, I'm not sure. I obviously like the matchup, but I'm really interested to see how it goes because I'm sure the match itself is going to be really good. But you also have me now thinking about the possibility of like a non-finish or something that leads to a triple threat or like a multi-person match or something. I definitely wouldn't prefer that, but I also respect the idea of like Maclin and Alexander both deserving to have a spot like that. So, but I want a real finish in this match too, though. We've waited long enough. Like I want like a real winner and loser here also. So I'm kind of torn between all those philosophies there. But that said, I do think it's going to be a really good match, and I do think Josh Alexander will probably win.
I'm with you on the fact that there's a lot that could happen as far as how you're going to book the winner. I don't think you can go wrong with either guy, Alexander or Maclin. I don't want a non-finish either. I would prefer that not to happen. If you do a time limit, that's one thing, because I don't mind a time limit finish, like a double DQ or something. That feels very cheap for fans. It's not a main event match, so that helps a little bit. I just don't like any type of DQ finishes in these big matches. So I'm okay if they go with like a time limit to set up a triple threat. We had Alex Shelley on In the Weeds yesterday, and we asked him, like, who do you prefer to face? And he kind of gave the answer of like, either one. He praised both guys, and he said that, both guys are two of the best right now, and they're very similar, and they deserve this spot. And I think he sounded like he was leaning maybe a little bit more towards Alexander, because Alexander had not lost the title, and obviously Shelley beat Maclin for the title.
Right.
And I think that's why I'm leaning towards Alexander as well, because he technically did not lose the belt. But I do think had Alexander and Maclin wrestled at Rebellion, that was going to be Maclin's time, and Maclin was going to beat Alexander.
You're probably right.
Jensen, your other spotlight for this week is Rickey Shane Page winning the MLW National Openweight Heavy. Their title names confuse me. I'm pretty sure it's just the National Openweight Championship. Beat Jacob Fatu in a Weapons of Mass Destruction match at MLW Fury Road, which I'm sure didn't probably get the coverage and love that it deserved, because it was on at the same time. It was on actually 2 hours before All Out, but everybody was just waiting for All Out. And then by the time All Out happened, everyone forgot about Fury Road. But your thoughts on Rickey Shane Page against Jacob Fatu and Rickey Shane Page winning the title?
Well, one critique I'll give MLW, because I give them a lot of praise right now as well, with how they're finally running their pay-per-views live on Fight and everything, and airing this stuff way closer to when they tape it and stuff for Fusion. So the one critique I would say is for Fury Road, they should have made sure that the main event of Alex Kane versus Willie Mack, which was a great main event, by the way, was they should have made sure that was excuse me. They should have made sure that was done before All Out started.
I think they were planning for that. I think they wanted to finish by 8, and then it just happened that things just ran long.
Yeah, but those running long for that handful of minutes is crucial, because they're running on the same platform. They're both on Fight TV. Well, actually, sorry, they're not both. AEW, well, depending on where you live. The AEW, you could either watch them, but either way, like you either have to switch over to Bleacher Report, or you could watch. Either way, if you're going to watch AEW All Out, unless you're going to dual screen, which a lot of people do, a lot of people had to make that decision to switch over to AEW and miss the end of the MLW pay-per-view, which I think is that's kind of a miss for MLW to do that. Now, that said, earlier in the show, the opener of the pay-per-view, Rickey Shane Page defeated Jacob Fatu, as you said, for the National Openweight Championship. And I like the match a lot. I like the story with all this a lot. I love the calling as a group. Like, I love seeing guys like Akira and Rickey Shane Page finally find like a real spot that works for them in wrestling outside of like just like the independent scene. I mean, RSP and 440 were the focal point of GCW for years. And then all of a sudden they were all just completely gone. And like, seeing Akira and RSP become the tag team champions. Akira already had the middleweight title. You have RSP now as the openweight champion. So they're both double champions and also both tag team champions. They're both mentored by Raven. They get really cool vignettes and videos. I think their music's cool. I think their presentation's cool. I think it's like actually like a really interesting thing going on in the wrestling landscape right now that not enough people are really talking that much about. I think the Calling's a really good group. They had a great feud with the SGC in MLW as well. And I love that. I mean, the finish, basically the numbers game got to Fatu, because Akira came out and attacked him. And during that, Rickey Shane Page was able to dick kick him and then hit him with a even flow DDT onto the open chair, which looked brutal. And I love seeing RSP just like using the even flow or the Raven effect, whatever you want to call it, as his finisher, as a homage to Raven, their mentor. And I've always been a fan of like the Nest and Raven's Flock and all this stuff. And this is kind of like an extension of all of that. And so I really enjoyed it. And I'm happy to see RSP kind of like find a spot that's working for him right now. Cause once again, was the face of, I shouldn't say the face. He was the GCW champion for a long time, focal point of the show, had some kind of shots in AEW, didn't wind up landing there. And I think he's found a good home for himself in MLW. So congratulations to RSP for becoming the new MLW National Heavyweight Champion.
Move on to and if you've not seen MLW Ferry Road, it is on Fight Plus. They're doing the specials every single month. Minoru Suzuki is going to be at the next show, which I very much look forward to seeing him murder somebody in MLW.
Murder Grandpa.
That's right. Move on to our indie spotlight.
I want to give a big motherfucking shout out.
Lash LeRoux is back, baby, wrestling Joey Janela this past weekend at GCW. Lash for a guy, he didn't have a long career in the business. Like, he only wrestled a handful of years. He was legitimately one of my favorite guys in WCW, even though like he had such a very small role and everything. Love the Raging Cajun thing. Love the pose that he would do. Lash LeRoux. Oh, it was so much fun. It was cool to see him back at GCW against Joey Janela this past weekend. And then he did an interview with Colt Cabana on Art of Wrestling after the match. He said he felt good. He said, it's kind of like riding a bike again. And we will see if he will take more bookings and stuff moving forward. He said he's open to it. So if you want to book Lash LeRoux, get out there, everybody.
I love it. I love how all this came together because I remember he tweeted something, or he started, maybe was doing like a wrestling seminar or something not that long ago. And when word got out there that he was interested in wrestling, because he hadn't wrestled for 13 years, immediately guys like Joey Janela were like licking their chops because
Janela's the best because he just wants to wrestle like all of these dudes, and he has connections and ties to like everyone, every single promotion, every single promoter, and he's just like, okay, yeah, how can we get this guy on the show? What can we do? Like Paul London, he talked about how he just wanted to take him everywhere and have him wrestle everywhere. I remember I spoke to Janela at Starcast years ago, and he's the one who got Soul Train Jones, Virgil, on AEW TV because they wanted to like do that bit with him with Jericho, and they were like, does anybody have his number? And Janela's like, yeah, I got it. Like, Janela just knows everyone.
I love that. Yeah, and I mean, he's done it for a lot of guys. Like he's a great guy to put in there with like the veterans that you want to like keep over in a setting like GCW, like when X-Pac came through, or like Ricky Morton and stuff like that. Like he's Joey Janela is the best person.
Kota Ibushi, when he came to the States, like he wrestled Janela. That was his first proper wrestling. He did the Bloodsport match against Speedball, but like the first actual wrestling match was Joey Janela, and that's a really fantastic match too.
For sure. So Lash LeRoux, like he looked good out there. Like he just looks like he's a little older, which is expected. It's been 13 years. He did a tope suicida into a DDT on the outside at one point. Like he was out there going for it, and he had his finisher, the land, I can't remember what he called it. It's the landslide move where you like off your shoulders, metal leak driver, whatever you want to call it. He did one of those like off the second rope through a door and stuff. Like, so Lash LeRoux went out there and went for it, and he still looks good. And we've seen plenty of guys like PCO and stuff have these like random resurgence on the indies. And I think Lash LeRoux could be one of those guys if he wants to keep going out there and doing it. So I really enjoyed Lash LeRoux versus Joey Janela. Joey Janela wound up getting the win with a super kick ultimately, but LeRoux looks like he can go out there and keep doing this. And it was good to see him. And I was a WCW kid. I remember, the Misfits in action. I remember all this stuff. And yeah, so this is a lot of nostalgia for me. And it's good to see a guy go out there and like I shouldn't say actually, because most of them do, hit my expectations, but I didn't really have expectations for Lash LeRoux after all these years. And he came out and I thought he performed really damn well. So if Lash LeRoux, if you ever see this, man, I hope to see you back. That was a lot of fun. And shout out to Joey Janela for obviously, everything he does to make sure everything goes so well for everybody.
Yeah. It was good to see him back. I hope he does continue. Again, he mentioned that he's open to it. If promoters book him, if fans want to see him, he's open to doing more. He said he felt good. So hopefully he gets some more spots around the country. Cabana Man Dan, who our interview was with here in just a couple minutes, he mentioned Lash LeRoux and training with him, and he mentioned his comeback that he just made. So again, everybody can listen to the Cabana Man Dan here interview in just a couple minutes, and he mentions some things about Lash LeRoux. My indie spotlight is Jon Moxley just showing up places, just as Jon Moxley's want to do. Showed up at AAW to help Robert Anthony against Mance Warner, and then he cut a promo on Mance Warner. We've seen Moxley and Mance in AEW. It feels like we might see Moxley and Mance, I would assume, in AAW now, because that's where they shot this kind of angle at. But, Revolver is certainly an option. One called Manders mentioned that he wanted to face Jon Moxley. Feels like we're going to get Moxley and Mance in some capacity on the independent scene in the near future.
Which I absolutely love. I love that for Mox. I love that for Mance. And Mox is the kind of guy where, we always, people are always joking about, Moxley never gets to take his vacation and stuff. There's nothing that indicates to me that this guy wants to take a vacation, because he's spending his off days showing up at indie shows like this. That's so awesome. And the pop that crowd gave him, because they had no clue Jon Moxley was going to be there. And the lights go off, and when they come back on, he's in the ring, standing in all black leather jacket, black jeans, eyeing down Mance. Mance is already a crimson mask. Hit Mance with the double arm DDT. Just, man, I'm with you though. I don't think they would do this without any payoff coming soon. So I think that we will get Mance Warner versus Moxley. And like you said, when we interviewed Manders, he said he wanted to wrestle Mox, and Mance and Manders obviously very close members of the Second Gear crew. I think that could potentially very well bleed over to where Moxley wrestles Manders, or they do some sort of tag team match. Maybe you could do Manders and Mance versus Mox and Sami Callihan.
Could do that. Mox and because he helped Robert Anthony. I would think Moxley and Robert Anthony against Manders and Mance. That
would make. I did. My mind just goes straight to nostalgia of let's just do because you mentioned Revolver and stuff too, because it's you could do Callahan versus Callahan but you're right. Anthony would make more sense considering that was the match that we saw and he helped them. So you're right about that.
Jensen, I know you got to run. Let everybody know where they can find you at.
Yes, y'all can follow me on X at @FightTalk_FIGHTTALK_. Use code FightTalk and independentwrestling.tv. And listen to the Weekender podcast. That's usually on Sundays on FightfulSelect.com. Sometimes Mondays, depending on what's going on. I will most likely have this show up this week before the noon, 1 p.m., depending on where you are. Before the afternoon NFL games on Sunday. I'll probably record it in the morning. So yeah, that's just a heads up for everyone who listens to the Weekender. During the football season, the schedule gets a little wild because depending on when the Vikings play dictates when I record the show. So I'll always make sure to update everyone on when things are happening on my Twitter or X at FightTalk_. Good to see everyone here in the chat. Good to see you, Jeremy. And I hope you all enjoy this interview you're about to hear with Cabana Man Dan. Very much looking forward to that. And also, I know Jeremy will probably get into this too, but we've been kind of chronicling the story of this bell shot that you're going to hear about and see a clip of. And Dan's the one who got hit by this thing. We've talked about it with Green. We've talked about it with Q. We'll eventually talk about it with Marco, I'm sure, as well. So anyway, good to see you, Jeremy. Good to see the chat. I'm going to clock in for the shoot job, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Skol Vikings.
Thanks as always, Jensen. Appreciate it. Have a good day. As football season is among us, I'm sure we will be talking more about that. I meant to show you this photo. I know you have to run, and I don't mean to keep you
It's okay. Show me the photo
too much longer. This our pal Louis Villa sent this. There you go. Look at
man. Oh man. That's funny. Hey, I appreciate the effort there. Thank you for anyone who ever wants to do that kind of stuff. By the way, I always appreciate stuff like that. Even if it's a joke about me or against me, I think it's funny. Anyone who wants to take the time to put my face on something, or me addressing my enemies, or really anything, that kind of stuff always pops me. So I appreciate it. That's a good way to start my work day off, seeing something like that. So I appreciate it. See y'all. Have a good weekend.
Have a good day, Jensen. Talk to you later, buddy. There you go. All right, let's get into it. Cabana Man Dan was in the creator spotlight this week. We have, Jensen mentioned it, we've talked about this belt shot that happened with Violence is Forever against, they were Giants. I think they must be Giants. Which is Cabana Man Dan and Marco Stunt. And it's Dominic Garrini leveling Cabana Man Dan with this bell, not belt. I think I misspoke, with this bell. And we talked to Garrini about it. We talked to Kevin Koo about it. We talked to Mose, who was in the building, about it. We talked to Cabana Man Dan about it as well. We've never actually played the clip, but we got clearance to play it. So we're gonna, if you've not seen this, you've heard about it if you've watched enough of our interviews and stuff. Even if you haven't watched the interview, sometimes Jensen will just bring it up randomly. This is like the most famous independent bell shot in the world. But if you've never seen it, I'm going to play the clip for everybody right now.
Great bell. Nah, the match is still going on. That's, oh shit! Stop that!
So there you go. You can see when he hits him in the back of the head with that thing. Cabana Man Dan is not seemingly fully expecting it, and then he hits him in the face, and then it leads to a bloody mess. So that is the infamous belt shot at SUP that we've mentioned multiple times on this show. And now we will get into it with Cabana Man Dan. We do ask him about it. A lot of other fun stuff with Cabana Man Dan. We talk about SpongeBob, which of course popped me. Talked about some WWE extra work, time in GCW, the break he had to take from wrestling due to an injury. A lot of fun stuff with Cabana Man Dan. So here we go, Cabana Man Dan in the Creator Spotlight.
Welcome to the Creator Spotlight, the interview portion of the Spotlight here on Fightful. I am Stephen Jensen, joined as always by Jeremy Lambert. And our guest today is the master of the flip-flop chop. He is Bikini Bottom's favorite wrestler. He is the Castaway. He is CMD. I know this man by a lot of names. I've followed him for a long time. We have Cabana Man Dan in the house today. Dan, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing great, Stephen. Jeremy, thank you for having me. And Bikini Bottom's most dangerous Dan. Just wow, you really pulled that one out of left or right field. So that made me smile pretty hard on the inside. So I forgot about that one.
Man, I was actually thinking about it. Like I usually kind of just go off the cuff for these intros, and I try to think about like, you know, just things about y'all that I remember. And I'm a big fan of Southern Underground Pro. That's where I really started seeing you like often live when I lived in Nashville. We talked before. It's been years though since like we did anything like recorded or anything like that. So like a lot to talk about, and you've done a lot throughout your career. You've been around a long time. People might not know this, but you started wrestling like around the year 2000, right?
Yeah, I started training in 2001. I've been backyard wrestling since like 99, 98, and then found an outlaw show in the back of an antique store, and that's where I learned to wrestle, I guess.
Oh man, who actually like broke you into wrestling, for people who may not know kind of like your history, like getting into the business of wrestling?
I was trained at Wrestling Christian Fellowship by Chief Littlelyn, was my initial trainer, and the show shut down about a year later, and this was before social media, and we didn't know where to go. So we just, we got literal word of mouth and found other shows, and, you know, just started wrestling wherever we could, and outlaw shows, and got trained more by Jack Lord, Todd Zane, Dan Sawyer, Adam Roberts, Patrick Bentley, and some, just anytime I could get into a ring before the show, even with like Lash LeRoux or take seminars, took a bunch with Quackenbush back in the day, and just anybody, you know, Steamboat, Gangrel. Just, I have a whole list somewhere. I mean, I can send you my resume, and it's like really, really long as far as seminars and stuff. But I mean, you never really stop training, and I always try to hop in the ring before shows and work out with anybody.
Now, someone you just mentioned, I don't know, Jerry, I don't want to take any questions from you, Jeremy, but someone you just mentioned, Cabana Man Dan, Lash LeRoux, just recently made his return, 13 years away from wrestling, just wrestled Joey Janela at GCW. How does that feel as someone who like knew him back then, seeing him like come, because I was a Raging Cajun fan back in the WCW days. I was a WCW kid. So like, yeah, how does that feel seeing that like just like last weekend?
Oh, it was great. You know, back in the day, we worked a lot of the same Alabama shows. And And he was the type of guy, even though he was a TV guy, fresh back on the indies, he was in the ring with greenhorns like me, working out and trying to spread some knowledge anytime he could. And, I saw it again at Top Guy Weekend over the summer. He was at Rocket City Championship Wrestling in Huntsville. And after everybody left, he hopped in the ring, and you could see that spark and twinkle in his eye. And he pulled one of the trainees into the ring and started bumping him around. And I was like, okay, he wants to do this again. And then he started cutting a promo, and that's whenever I think he was announced for GCW within the next week, so it was cool.
I did want to ask about the Bikini Bottom stuff because I'm a big SpongeBob fan, and obviously I assume it has to come from the SpongeBob. So I just need to know more about the origins of this nickname here.
Well, it was a cross between Ken Shamrock being the most dangerous man, and then back when I first started, before I had any wrestling gear, I used to wrestle in just yellow board shorts, and I would come out with a yellow shirt that just had SpongeBob's face on it, and the whole shirt was the rest of SpongeBob, and it was like an angry grr face. So I would come out with that, and then I had a straw hat and a grass skirt, and just whatever I could find back in the day to really get into a fun Islander character. I just put it on there, and I really loved SpongeBob then and now, and I tied that in, and then with Southern Underground Pro, I was like, let's just go, let's just really go there, and we did Bikini Bottom's Most Dangerous Dan instead of Man. So I like Dan and man puns, so it all kind of worked together great.
Yeah, and one more SpongeBob question before Jensen yells at me. He wants to ask about all the wrestling stuff.
People want to know this kind of stuff. So yes. I just don't know a lot about SpongeBob, and I do apologize. I think during my intro I said Bikini Bottom's favorite wrestler. It had been a while since I heard that intro. You called that, so fair enough. But yes, Bikini Bottom's most dangerous Dan. To be,
yes.
I mean, maybe even their most favorite wrestler. There was the episode where Patrick and SpongeBob wrestled each other. So, I mean, maybe Patrick and SpongeBob are more favorites than Dan, but we'll give Dan the nod saying Bikini Bottom.
Where are they at?
Him. Yeah, that's right. Who have they ever beaten? Technically, that match went to a draw, so that's nobody won that thing. I was going to ask, kind of favorite SpongeBob episodes.
Oh gosh, my dog just jumped on the cord and almost yanked my laptop off the table. Oh gosh, I just got into a long binge, and then there was one on Twitter that's like, hey, stop what you're doing and watch this episode of SpongeBob. And I was like, well, I'm at work, I'll just stop what I'm doing and just watch this episode of SpongeBob. And it was whenever SpongeBob came up with the colorful Krabby Patty.
Yes,
and then
pretty patties.
the pretty patties, and
yes.
then Mr. Krabs swindled him and stole it from him, gave him the Krusty Krab, and then those pretty patties made everybody sick and turn colors and stuff, and wanted their $1 million of refunds, and he ran away. So that's my current favorite because that's the most recent one. That's how my mind works.
Fair enough on that. I bring that episode up a lot with I have kids, and they like to have the Play-Doh and stuff. They'll mash the Play-Doh, and it's like, here, it's a pancake. I was like, there's this SpongeBob episode where it's just different colors of hamburgers out there. Jensen, I will turn it back over to you for the wrestling side of things.
No, dude, it all goes hand in hand because I thought it was smart. Sub graps, especially coming out and with the coconut and the glasses and the flip flops, and the whole thing worked really, really well. One of my favorite moments from kind of that era was when I can't remember the full team, but it was like Team Sup represented in the collective weekend, and that was just a really cool moment, just seeing you guys out there in front of kind of the bigger stage too. Because I know wrestling has to have changed a lot since. I mean, just even the distribution alone of wrestling has changed a ton since you've been involved. So can you speak to kind of that? I guess kind of just how much wrestling has changed, not how big independent wrestling has become, and how many people can watch it now versus back when you started doing this.
Well, it has changed a lot. First thing, it's everything is instantaneous, and the delivery of wrestling is give me 1 second. I'm going to go put you in the bathroom. Hold on a second.
You're good.
The dog has made a run-in.
Dog made a run-in
on this show.
Cabana Man Dan's going to go heel on the dog.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. Didn't go heel. Went total baby face. I actually went to a off topic. I actually went to a pet store yesterday just to look around at some animals and didn't get anything, but I did pet the bunnies and a Yorkie. So putting that out there.
Okay. Well, I mean, like I said, it's that my style, hasn't changed a whole lot in this whole time, but everything else around it has. Back in the day, maybe mid 2000s, we started getting that X Division and that Ring of Honor style. And then Scott Hensley will coin that me and Christian Haim kind of adopted that style and started doing it in Alabama first. And I'm blown up just from running across the house. I'm so sorry. But I mean, the main thing is just the distribution and the word of mouth of how to get your shows out. That's the biggest part of it. And social media changed independent wrestling. Even from whenever I took a break in 2010 and came back in 2016, it was like light years in that 6 years than what it was as far as the delivery of it.
What made you leave, and then what made you come back in that time?
Well, I was wrestling at a show in Piedmont, Alabama called Pro South. It's a weekly show on YouTube every Friday, even now. And I was wrestling Christian Haim, and everything was fine. And then 2 days later, I woke up with a severely pinched nerve in my neck that paralyzed my arm from the elbow down and drew my hand up like this, and I couldn't use it. And at that time, I didn't have a kid yet. I was working with my hands a lot, and I was like, wow, this is really serious. So I took 6 years off. I was going through some therapy on my neck and just to alleviate that. And, the feeling came back and I can use my hand. And then I just took a break. I was like, this is a sign. And then the scene wasn't really great. It was just the same guys and just outlaw shows. I didn't know really a lot beyond Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee at that time. I think I traveled outside of the South 2 times to IWA Mid-South and to Chikara. But what brought me back was New South and Central Alabama. That was the main one. Dump Sanders and Chris McInnes and Christian Haim were there, and they invited me to come check out one of their shows. They were doing something special, is what they said. So I came and checked out the show. Started working at commentary and backstage, but it wasn't until I watched a triple threat tag match between Team IOU, which is now the Carnies, versus Viking War Party, which was Warhorse and Herzog, and Roscoe Eat Lisa. So, I mean, these are some names from the past, and they just killed it, especially, the Carnies. They brought back, and I'll credit Nick and Kerry to this day of bringing that magic back to me in wrestling, that you can be entertaining, you can do these crazy moves, and you can get the crowd invested in what you're doing. And they got me invested. I was sitting right next to Donnie Primetime, poking our head around the locker room. I didn't know him yet. And we were both just going ape shit about this match. And I was like, I got to get back in. So I started getting in shape, just, maybe have one more match. And then a week before another show at New South, John Wayne Murdoch had canceled, and Dump called me and said, hey, man, I need you to wrestle this weekend. I was like, whoa, I haven't wrestled in 6 years. Oh, you got Christian Haim. It'll be fine. So I stunk up the joint that night, but I woke up 2 days later and I wasn't paralyzed. So I was like, well, maybe I'll just have a match every now and then. And then I have more matches in that last, in the previous 7 years than I did in the first 10 times 2 probably. So it's been a really, really strong and fun run, especially 2019 to 2022. Really amazing stuff.
Did you keep up with wrestling at all during your time away?
I mean, I would keep up a little bit. I would show up at Pro South every now and then, or if Dump or somebody would invite me to a show. Maybe it was Christian Haim, IWE Deep South before they were the shits. And I would just do commentary or whatever, but I wasn't really plugged in anymore. People were doing stuff, but I wasn't. I was just doing life.
Well, you mentioned a decent amount of people, that we've talked about or have talked about on the show pretty often and stuff, like Scott Hensley, for instance. Have you known him that long? Because obviously there's a connection there with Scott running the SCI and Action and SUP and New South, kind of that ecosystem, kind of in the whole scene. And Scott's somebody who's kind of an unsung hero, kind of, in my opinion, someone who I think does a lot behind the scenes for a lot of people and puts on really great shows, but isn't necessarily the one who always gets credit for that. So if you want to kind of speak about him a little bit.
Well, there was a weekly Tuesday night show in North Alabama called Full Throttle Wrestling. And it was right on the Georgia-Alabama line. And you would get some really wacky guys on occasion. You'd have Eric Young, James Storm, Tracy Brooks, Samoa Joe, Chris Hero, Sterling James Keenan, which is Corey Graves now, would just randomly show up on a Tuesday night. And that's where I had met Scott, or he was in the crowd and saw me. I mean, there was just a lot of people that were going to that show. Braden Toon was a little kid watching that show. And even Conrad Thompson was going to that show. And it's just so crazy because this is like middle 2000s, if like maybe 05, 06, 07. So, I mean, that show was like a precursor to a lot of like that super indie show. I mean, yeah, there was some like Alabama wrestling on the show, but I mean, I tagged with Samoa Joe on a Tuesday night there. And, and then you had Chris Hero there. And it's just like, what are they doing here?
All right, well, now I got to ask, what was it like tagging with Samoa Joe? I know it was 2007, but still 2007, Samoa Joe had a good ROH run, and I believe even TNA stuff by that point. So what was it like teaming with Joe?
Well, I mean, I had to carry him through the match.
Sure. Fair enough.
No, he was actually in TNA at that time, and I think he was working the Indies with like a bad back. So he was wrestling Insane Lane in a quick one-on-one. Christian Haim came in and made it 2-on-1. Cabana Man Dan comes out, makes a save. Let's have a straight up tag team match, playa. So it was amazing. Joe was a treat to work with, and I don't even know if he remembers that day. I mean, he's been everywhere. I remember it really, really well. And even before the show, he was dropping nuggets of knowledge to people, and just giving what he knew. And it was a treat. He is huge in person. He took a picture with me and my wife, and like both of us together is not as big as Samoa Joe. And he shook my hand in the middle of the ring. We got a nice picture of that. And it was like, it's like, here's Samoa Joe with this small kindergartner. So it was really cool. But it was great. I like it. It's something that I get to keep on my mind in memories forever in wrestling. And it's just another Tuesday night at Donna's Country Music Barn.
That's awesome. There's someone else you mentioned is Dump Sanders, who you're a former New South Tag Team Champion with. Obviously, a guy who is very important to New South, as are you. Being a former multiple time New South champion yourself, holding that gigantic title belt. That if you'd like, actually, before we get into anything with anyone else, if you'd like to speak to that title belt a little bit, because I know I've talked to you about it years ago, but most people probably don't know the story of like how that belt came to be, this gigantic world title belt.
Okay, so it was made by Brian Bearden. So if you watch that TNA era, he was the timekeeper, and he was their version of the sweaty, oily guy back in the day. Well, he made some belts back in when New South first started. So they had sent Chris McInnes designed the belt, sent him the schematics, I guess. He cut the plates out, sent the picture back, and was like, "Whoa, these plates are like 1.5 times too big." And it's wrestling, and Dumb Sanders was like, "You know what? Fuck it. Bigger is better in wrestling. It'll be a story." So it was a total accident, and it's like, you know what? Let's just have the biggest damn belt in independent wrestling and just embrace it. And they did, and man, that thing is a son of a bitch to carry around in the airports. It always gets flagged. I always have to take it out every time it goes through the X-ray machine. They like swabbed it for bomb residue one time. I'm like, what is happening here? So I started just carrying it in a nasty old pillowcase. That way nobody's going to steal a title belt if it's in a nasty pillowcase. Like, we had it under a Greyhound bus, and like the guy unloading everybody's luggage didn't want to touch it because I'm not touching that nasty bag because I got it, man. So I went and got that. So yeah, it was a crazy thing. When I had the belt for that year, anytime I was wrestling like at Black Label Pro, or when I went up to Pizza Party Pro and beyond and stuff, I would always have the belt because I wanted to show it off, because I wanted to be like the best spokesperson for New South, Southern wrestling, and Alabama wrestling as I could. And I just carried it around everywhere. I didn't walk out with it if I was going to lose. You could come see it at intermission. So, and then like every 6 months or so, that goofy picture where I'm struggling to hold the belt always goes viral, either on Reddit or Facebook or Twitter. And people don't even know that's me anymore. And it's really funny.
That is funny. Can you speak more to like your relationship with Dump Sanders and like guys like Brandon Williams and stuff who like in prime time, like guy like long time, really influential, pieces of New South.
Yeah, so I met Dump when he was wrestling as Triple X with Christian Haim, who was Sexual Vanilla at the time, and like the most outlaw. Like this was back in this show was called Mickey's, and it was ACW, and it was in the back of a boot store, and I tagged with Buff Bagwell that night, and I met Dump Sanders there, and this was like maybe 2003. So fast forward, we like become friends. We're on shows a lot, and then he was the one that, invited me to come to New South to check out what they're doing. And then, I got fully sucked in, and, we had the fantastic first ever tag team championships of New South run. And, worked together a lot, during those times. So he's probably one of the hardest working promoters and bookers in the Southeast, if not all of indie wrestling. Cause whenever he sends like the summer schedule, it's like almost every weekend we're in a different town, different part of Alabama, or we're in a different bar or a Comic-Con or just high school. So it's crazy.
I want to ask about this match, which I'm going to call the Housen match.
Okay.
Where it is Dan Housen, Dan the Dad, Effie, Warhorse against you, Devin Monroe Housen, Megabyte Ronnie Housen, Puff Housen. Please tell me about this match and how it came together and any experiences from it.
Well, I think Mikey at Black Label Pro was having a very high fever and went to sleep one night, and then decided to do this Danhausen team versus 4 other Danhausens. And I think they announced that match before I was booked for it, and I was like, man, I hope they book me for that because Cabana Man Danhausen. There was like this really bad Photoshop picture of a long time ago. I don't know who made it, but it was a conglomeration of Danhausen, Cabana Man Dan, and Colt Cabana. And it was Colt, Cabana Man, Danhausen. And it was just like a bunch of broken action figure pieces put together. And I was like, ever since then, I was like, it'd be really cool to be like doing this. And then it happened. And it was really wild because the previous time I was at Black Rebel Pro, I was still like the happy-go-lucky flip-flop chop guy. And then fast forward to like maybe 2 years later when I come back, I'm like doing the Castaway gimmick with the big beard and like totally different look and jacked and all that. And it was really fun. Danhausen did our makeup along with Kayla and another girl. I don't remember their names off the top of my head.
Yeah. But I can't remember the other girl. I remember Kayla doing it though. I for sure remember her being a part of that because she was tweeting about it. Like
yeah. And we did that, and it was really fun, and like it was just total like silly match, but it was really fun. I haven't had a chance to work with Warhorse before, and Dan the Dad, and Effie like that. So it was, and Danhausen, we've worked several times before that, but it was really fun.
Dan the Dad has been on our show, and he is very fun. And Megabyte Ronnie is a friend of the show at this point. I would say anybody that does an eating competition with me, I'm going to consider a friend of the show. So just looking at that cast there was very exciting for me. I'm going to have to go back and watch that. I did want to, you brought up Colt Cabana. Have you talked to Colt and ever gotten any advice, been able to pick his brain? Because I know he is very respected on the independent scene just for basically everything he's done for the scene.
Well, we've only met like 1.5 times. I went to one of his $5 wrestling live shows when they were in Atlanta several years ago, and I was like, hey, if I tell you who I am, will you punch me? And he's like, no. And I was like, I'm Cabana Man Dan. He's like, oh, holy shit. And, we shook hands and stuff. I mean, I didn't really get a chance to like pick his brain because he was getting ready for the $5 wrestling. I mean, if anything, he was dropping knowledge during the $5 wrestling on what not to do. So that was good. And like, I had a weird thing. So I always thought we had heat because back in like the early 2000s, they had an NWA convention in Nashville, and I was representing Ultimate NWA, and there was a guy there, and I don't know if this was real or not. He was claiming to be Scrap Iron Adam Pearce's brother, and he's like, hey, you need to change your name because there's already Cabana in wrestling. And I was like, I don't know Colt Cabana. I mean, I'm like a kid. at this point, and we both had like the Cabana name at like the early 2000s. Like we're not even the same. I'm doing like a Hawaiian character. And then I always thought we had heat because of that. And I guess we didn't because he didn't punch me in the face. And then the next time I saw him was I was doing streamers and ring crew for Ring of Honor, and he was there doing commentary, and I was like crouched by the commentary table, like collecting gear and streamers. So that's the half meeting was that one.
We need to clear up. Yes, we need to clear up if you have heat. It doesn't seem like it. You think
I don't
if
think
you
so.
if you introduced yourself as Cabana Man Dan and he didn't immediately be like, I'm not talking to you, then I think things
No, I don't think so. And I think even like there was a time whenever he might have been in one of the developmental things with a friend of mine at another show, and the friend of the other guy in developmental was at an Alabama show, and he like sent a picture of me to him or something like that. I don't know. This was a million years ago too. So there's sillier things to have heat at with other people in wrestling. So I think we're okay.
Now speaking of heat, okay. So this was potential heat that I know isn't heat, and that's why I'm bringing it up. But there is something that's very infamous, something that we've it's become like a long-going like kind of story arc throughout our show. Me and Jeremy are doing our show together, interviewing a lot of independent wrestlers and stuff over the last, how long have we been doing this together, Jeremy? A little over a year together, year and a half, something
a year
like
and
that.
a half at this point, yeah.
And we've interviewed, a lot of guys, and two of them that have come on the show were Dominic Garrini and Kevin Koo. I was live in the building in the Basement East when you got hit in the head by Dominic Garrini with a ring bell, and it was the most brutal, just chill, the vibe of that place changed suddenly with everybody just being concerned as to what the hell was that. And you were the one who got hit. We have not talked to Marco yet. He's the only one in this story we haven't gotten, his piece from yet in this scenario. But what was that like in that moment? Because it's become like anytime I bring up that match, they might be Giants versus VIF. The first thing that's brought up was that the match with the ring bell?
Man, the first thing was like that I thought, I was like, that really fucking sucked. And I don't know what that was. I was like, so I heard him ring the bell. I was like, okay, here we go. I'm about to turn around, and get hit in the head where I'm seeing a bell coming towards my face. So I know what to do. And the next thing I know, I am on the ground. I mean, I heard the bell. Like, it was so comedic. Like, if you watch a cartoon where someone gets hit with a bell and it makes that bell sound, like, you wouldn't think that would really happen in real life. And it sure did, because I have that hard Islander head. But I knew that I took a second, and I was like, it wasn't even a second. I was like, I felt it. I was like, yeah, but I really need to get hit again in the front because I want to bleed. I'm going to bleed, and this is how I'm going to bleed. I got to get hit in the front. So I had to like shake it off, and it instantly had like an egg on the back of my head. I could feel it like instantly. And I had to get up, and this was like halfway through the match too. Yeah. So we had a lot left to go. So I really couldn't worry about it at that time. I needed to worry about it later. So, it happened, and we still had business to attend to, and we just kept going. And that match is my, I don't know. I have so many favorite SUP matches. SUP is like my home away from home. The Basement East is the home away from home. And a place where I shouldn't have gotten popular at was the place where I felt like the most popular at for me. And I don't know why, but it's a place I miss dearly. And but yeah, anyways, yeah, it happened, and we had to keep going. So that's well, there's no heat there. It was just more like a what the fuck. Hey, I'm sorry. I was like, dude, we were just going wild out there. I mean, if it was just like a regular professional wrestling match and I get hit with a bell like that, that'd be really a reason to be upset. But I got him back with the flip-flops with the tacks on it. Because I pressed them pretty hard into his head, as hard as I could for that time, and until he made me stop. So I feel like we got a receipt pretty quick on that and kept back at it.
Yeah. Well, and it was good to know that you guys just kind of like, it was like it happened, receipt, just moved on, no heat going forward. And
Other wrestlers were more mad about it than I was.
I believe it. I mean, because a lot of decisions were made for that thing. Like, that was the main event. I remember this very vividly because Mose, who one of the I know he's worked for New South as well in the past. But Mose and me were talking during intermission of that show because Alley Catch and Brett Eisen had just wrestled for this Bone Storm title, and I was confused. I was like, why did they put the world title or the Bone Storm title on the line in it's like such a big match for Sup because like Alley Catch, the heart and soul of the company, and Brett being the champion he was and everything, and Mose was like, just wait till this main event. Like I think this main event's gonna be pretty worth it. And I was like, oh yeah, I bet. I didn't know what to expect. Were you? I don't know if it was like a few of y'all or just you or a few. Like, were you one of the ones who like kind of made the decision on the spot? Like, I'm gonna bleed tonight. Like, I know there was like a few of y'all were kind of like deciding what was gonna go on during this thing, and maybe some of y'all hadn't even bled before this match and like decided like this was the time.
I had never done that. I mean, I've bled like on accident, but I've never done a match where everybody's bleeding like that. Like I've never done like death matches or real plunder matches where it can get messy like that. So I wasn't going to at first, but then I was like, you know what? This is a program that's been built for 8 months. We got Violence is Forever. This is supposed to be, this street fight. There's weapons. There's sharp objects out there. There's no glass, thank God. But, let's really make this special. And it was kind of like my own peer pressure. And, I had a couple beers. I was like, you know what? Let's do this. I know I have to drive back to my home, pick up my family, and drive to Orlando for a week at Disney. But I got to get color tonight, baby. And so if you fast forward and see my family photos for like Monday or Tuesday at Universal, rather, I have this big bandage on my head. So my wife was real thrilled. But, no, it wasn't going into that day that I didn't know I was going to be bleeding buckets, but they made some really damn cool 8x10s because it's like a hardcore CMD. And that wasn't what I was about at the time. And I don't really want to go down that path too often.
It was worth it though for the
sure.
I mean, oh yeah, man, that match is gonna live on forever. That was at that point actually to this day I think that's the most brutal match I've been at live. And I've been to some GCW shows where things are pretty wild, but that was everything happened. There were skewers, there was tacks to the feet, there was tacks to the chest from you, there was the bell shot. I mean, not just the surface of it. I mean, little Marco Stunt's blood was all over my sandals, dude. I mean, it was like, that was brutal. And also you mentioned it's pretty topical. You mentioned, thank God there was no glass. What's your opinion on using real glass in wrestling?
I mean, you can, I'm not, and please don't do it before my match goes out. And whenever I see like glass being used and I see it and it happens, or thumbtacks before my match, I'm always so pissed off. And like, I'm like running around backstage, like someone better clean that up. I get heated about it because it's like whoever like put the card together realized I'm wrestling after some sort of hardcore match or something that involves glass, and you had to put me after it. You should put me before that. But whatever.
I remember one time, there's actually been a few backstage stories I've heard that I won't talk about people getting really upset about stuff like that. I've heard about one person that no one would be surprised about. I've heard about Low-Key getting very upset about these things at shows. Also, I've just kind of funny. I remember one time Dr. Cube, they took his big cardboard box and like used it to get all the stuff out of the ring in one show because it was like, we got to get this out of here now, and they didn't have anything else to put all the glass and stuff in, so they just grabbed his helmet, his mask, helmet, whatever you want to call that, and used that to get the ring clean. So I thought that was kind of funny.
I would be pissed too for that. I mean, you got to put that on your head.
Yeah,
get a broom.
Guarini mentioned he's like, he's done a lot of things in his career, and he's like, yeah, I don't mind doing some of the hardcore stuff if the time's right. He's like, but the tacks to the feet, glass, like that was the worst thing I've ever experienced. So yeah, imagine doing all of that, and then, or if you have it before the match and it's not cleaned up, and you accidentally step on a tack or a piece of glass or something.
I have done
absolutely
that.
Sucked. Oh,
and it just takes me out of the match. Like I will stop in my match and just be like, take it off, and I just get mad, and then I have to like turn the switch back on. Okay, now we got to go back to what we're doing. Now that I've removed a shard out of my foot, let's get back to what we were doing. But yeah, it totally breaks my character when I'm out there, and it just makes me mad. But
I could not imagine. I have kids and they leave stuff around everywhere. And if I just step on something or trip over something, I'm like, what are we doing here, children? What are we doing? So I imagine it's very much the same thing of like, all right, there's just a random tack in the ring and this
and it's just
here,
one. And that's the worst.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's my biggest fear.
Just
Like,
gets
not
you.
even as a wrestler, as a fan watching wrestlers, like in death matches and hardcore matches and stuff. My biggest fear as a fan is seeing someone just catch a stray. Like I wouldn't be that concerned. I mean, I wouldn't want to do any of it personally. That's why I talk about it instead of getting in the ring, of course. But I would imagine if you took like 1,000 tacks at one time to your back, it would be better than not knowing you were going to step on one tack and it just catching you in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Well, I'm determined to be the next Action Mike Jackson, and the less of that that I can have in my matches, the longer my career will be. So
there you go.
We're fine.
There you go.
That's a good goal right there. I was going to ask you about your experiences at GCW. You've made a handful of appearances for them, and especially with the GCW New South shows. So what were those shows like? Man,
it was amazing. Like back in January when I wrestled Blake Christian, I mean, that we saw how much time we were going to have, and it's like Blake is he's the current champion now, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, he's a top guy there, and we've worked each other and known each other for quite a while in the southeastern scene. Like we met the first time as extras for Raw in Memphis, and that's like right before he really blew up. And then we worked each other at like Wombat and just like various random shows, like tagging and against each other. But he had grown up and matured so much as a wrestler to January of this year. This is a big match for me. So, I can't be in there and like stink it up. I mean, it was a good time for my character and the direction of how I wrestle to meet with a true heel. And that's when you get the best out of me as a true babyface versus a true heel. And we could tell a story, and that's what we did. And that's what, it was a really great match booked by Brett, is because you have like Mr. outside of Adam Priest and Mike Jackson, you have Mr. Alabama with Cabana Man Dan, like 3 generations of the Alabama guy versus the current top guy, and it was really good. And then the next night versus Tony Depp and replacing a hurt Brandon Williams, and I didn't know that I was going to have that match until that day, so. That was another treat. And it's like Tony Devlin's another top guy who's everywhere. So it was back to back, just really banging matches with top guys and really good stories in the vacuum of both of those matches too. So I was really pleased with the turnout of both of those. I went 1-1 that weekend, so I was happy with it.
Yeah, and the fans really gave you a great reception as well. Which
I won't forget about that either, because I had trimmed down like 10 pounds down to 149 that night. And I was like, okay, I look good. I came out and I was like, I was blown away. Like, I was like, yeah, I'll get a good reaction being, who I am in Huntsville of all places. But fuck, man, that was a really good reaction. Like during the intermission, a lot of people was like, hey, I remember seeing you at Global Championship Wrestling back in 2006, or I was there on Tuesday nights in 2007. A lot of people that used to go to Alabama shows all came to the first GCW show in Huntsville, and it was just like story after story. It's like, hey, I met you and I was in elementary school, and now I'm graduated from college married with kids. I was like, oh, I'm really old, because I had started when I was 16 and I'm 38 now. So it's like, yeah, I've wrestled for people that were children when they met me. So it's crazy.
Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was going to ask about being a WWE extra. You mentioned doing that with Memphis with Blake Christian. Was that the only time, or have there been other experiences as well?
There's 2 other experiences, because I did like a Monday in Memphis and a Tuesday in Birmingham in 2019. And then recently this year, I did one in Knoxville for SmackDown, I think back in the summer or spring. So it was cool. It's always cool to see how the sausage is made. And I don't pass. They're very thorough on their physicals, and I'm a very beat up wrestler. So it's just cool to be part of it. And if they have stuff that's not physical, like being part of the Adam Rose guys or the conga line, and just being backstage doing whatever, I get to do that. Or I did get a Singh brother thrown on me a bunch one night by Braun Strowman, and that was really funny. I mean, I talked to Vince McMahon that night too, and that was
Okay, go ahead.
wild.
Yeah, please, you can't just gloss past that. Okay.
Yeah, Vince McMahon. What do you ever do?
Yeah.
No, I mean, like I'm not starstruck because we're there, conducting business or whatever. But and then you have Vince McMahon walk up to you, and you're like, that's like the godfather of like of professional wrestling as I know it. And they had produced a segment and kind of said what they wanted to do. So now it's time to present it to Vince. So he's walking up and he's told, well, Braun's going to throw the Singh brother on this table right here. And there's 2 other tables behind us. And he's like looking and he's like, okay, well, goddamn, can't Braun throw him to a 3rd table in the back? And really show that, Braun's a big deal. I was like, yeah, we'll do that. But no, we had the Singh brother thrown on us. Let's do it again. Singh brother thrown on our table a 2nd time. Someone yelled fuck. And Triple H like, you can't say fuck, do it again. So we just did it a few times with this one poor Singh brother. And then there's like, okay, well, let's do one more with the other brother. And they take that take. So, it was funny. So, I mean, it was really cool. It is like a hive of all the production people, whether they're local or the ones that come with them. It's just like, this is like a full thing. This is like making movies, pal. So it was crazy. It was awesome. Anytime I can go and just be a part of that, I try to, because it's just really cool.
Yeah, you said you did both the, unless I heard you wrong, did you do both the conga line for No Way Jose and Adam Rose's
no, just
line?
Just the conga line, but just stuff like that we were allowed to do.
Cool.
Without doing anything physical. Like I can't go, I wouldn't be allowed to like be squashed by Brock Lesnar, which is fine by me.
Sure. We were talking about Blake Christian being a great current GCW champion. Another champion I wanted to ask you about, another guy who got started young, you being at 16. Another guy who started as a teenager, Hunter Drake, the current New South champion. He's another guy we've gotten a chance to interview a little while back, and seeing his progression from Talladega Nights to now has been fantastic. He's also been kind of finding a spot for himself in GCW lately too, and with like seeing the progress he's made and where he's at as the New South champion currently.
Man, I mean, him and Braden Tood shocked the scene by the ending of Anniversary 8, where Dylan McQueen wins this triple threat cage match. Holy shit, the underdog, which everybody was expecting Hunter Drake to really win. So he wasn't the underdog, but Dylan McQueen was kind of like this dark horse. He wins, and then Braden Toon comes out with his signed, sealed, and delivered instant championship match, Money in the Bank type thing. He starts blasting people, which is very uncharacteristic of Braden Toon, just hit him like being a jerk. And then he hands it over to Hunter Drake, who cashes it in and pins knocked out Dylan McQueen. So it was shocking. So this is a character turn that nobody was expecting, and people were still talking about it. And like me and Hunter Drake, we've only wrestled each other like in a tag match and then at a bar show in the rain. So we haven't had that real one-on-one experience, because I was like, hey, Hunter, it's raining really bad. We've got some big things coming up. We're going to have a really damn good match one day. It's just not going to be today. So we'll probably, especially now that he's kind of turned his back on the New South faithful, there could be an opportunity for first-time matchups between Hunter Drake and myself and Braden Toon.
He's bragging about taking nights off, man. He's hanging out with that New South Championship, like not showing up to shows and stuff, it looks like. So yeah, you might have to go represent for the company, man.
Yeah.
Dan, as we start to wind down here, my last question and something that we ask everybody on this show, the coolest thing in your room.
Okay, so the coolest thing in my room, well, this is kind of like a wrestling related one, and then the non-wrestler related one. The coolest thing that's in my room that's a non-wrestling thing is a leopard gecko named Zammy that we fostered from some friends that my daughter goes to dance with. They had their house burned down, and they were able to save some of the pets, and Zammy the leopard gecko was one of them. So we adopted him, and he's really cool. And then on my nightstand, hanging on my lamp, is my Young Lions Cup 5 medal from Chikara. I've still got it hanging. Like, I've had people try to buy it from me, and I'm just a guy. I'm not gonna I'm not going to sell most of my wrestling stuff or any of my wrestling stuff if I can get away with it. And that was near and dear to me. So I keep it on my nightstand. That my Chikara medal is a big deal, a cool thing to me. I don't know if it's cool to a lot of people, but it's cool to me.
Very cool.
Yeah. Dan, thanks for joining us here tonight. We really appreciate it. Let everybody know where they can find you at.
Yeah. Well, you can find me on X at Cabana Man Dan. You can find me on Instagram at cabana.man.dan. I'm also on Facebook as well. You can't find me at shows for a few months because I have a torn calf, but I'm healing well. It's also given me time to take care of some other nagging injuries, like I had a procedure done to my elbow, just a nasty injection in my elbow to cure tennis elbow, and I've got a swollen left knee. So I'm taking a nice deserved break after the last 7 years of a 20-year career in wrestling. So I'll be back soon, and Rolando Perez won't know when it's coming, and I'm gonna beat his ass. So he kicked me in the balls at anniversary while I was in a boot and beat the shit out of me. So he's gonna get his, whether it's at New South or I might follow his ass to NWA. You never know.
I was saying Rolando Freeman over there. You better watch out. The NWA. Yeah, man. I can't wait to see you return, man. I'm a longtime fan. It was great to have you on the show today, Dan. And I'll always I value all your work everywhere, but like I have a real soft spot for like the Southeast, and like getting to see you live at like Chattanooga and Nashville and stuff is like it's a big part of my fandom as like a independent wrestling fan. Very important to me. So very important to have you on the show today. And now we just have one more left from that VIF versus they might be Giants match to talk to you about that whole thing. We got to get Marco Stunt on here someday.
Yeah, you got to find he's hard to find these days. So
he is. He's laying low.
Yeah, well, you can't miss you if you don't go away. So he's gone away right now. So we're missing him.
I appreciate you, Dan, because we haven't had too many interactions on X, if you want to call it that. But I've reached out to you a couple of times, like, hey, can you like get me in contact with this person? And you've always been very kind and helpful in doing that. So I appreciate that you've linked me up with people and helped get them on this show or another show that I do. That's again big of you, because you don't know me. You don't know me from anybody else, and you've just been helpful. And I appreciate that you've been helpful to someone like me. So thank you.
For doing that. Y'all have been helpful in the scene of independent wrestling, especially with like the Southeast, whether it was just like sending you reports, whether it's a New South show, or if I'm doing a spot show in a elementary school gym for Mike Jackson against Adam Priest for the 20th time this month. I just like to, just send stuff out, and, Action's another one that, that carries some weight in the Southeast, Southern Honor as well. So it's like there's a lot of unsung heroes in the Southern scene, and it's just nice for some light to get shed on these folks.
Yeah, we're trying. Jensen's going to bat for all of them, so Jensen will.
Oh yeah, well it's funny. It's funny. I felt bad that it took this long to get you on, because we've had like everyone like a Jason and around you on lately too. So it was like we're chipping away. Like I had kind of all this New South talent, and I kept telling Jeremy, I was like, eventually we got to get Dan on here. Just got to get kind of the right timing. And you've been on our list for quite a while. So I'm very happy this happened.
Well, I appreciate it. And like, man, we could talk for just hours about cause I mean, there's a lot. Like I was like typing out, just cool people I've wrestled. I was like, holy shit. These are stars before they were stars whenever we locked up. So it was really, really cool. Really cool stuff.
Well, you're welcome back anytime. I'm sure we'll have you back at some point. But thank you again for doing this tonight, everybody. The links are below to follow and to support Dan. You can check out the description below. Check out the links below. Click those. Thank you again, Dan. Guys, we'll be right back here on the. Big thanks to Cabana Man Dan for his time this week, joining us in the Creators Spotlight. Guys, that'll do it for us today. Thank you as always to Stephen Jensen for joining me. Thank you to everybody in the chat for joining us throughout the day or throughout the morning and hanging out while we talked a little professional wrestling. We'll be back next week. New episode covering everything that's happening in the world of wrestling. Guys, you can head over to Fightful.com. Check out the stories we got going on. Head over to Fightful Select. Best $5 in the business. Dropping news all the time. Dropping news. Head over to FightfulOverbooked.com. Check out all the stuff we got going on over there, including In the Weeds every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern. We just had Alex Shelley on the show yesterday. Go check out that interview. That is up now on Fightful Overbooked. We'll be back next week, everybody. Until then, y'all take care. Have a good weekend, everybody.